the unexpected.
And the Kentucky coronation is complete.
That's a man's jam.
Legends double order for the championship.
Do you believe it? The flipper still fits.
Five, step back, three for the tie.
The madness is real.
Ron Hunter has fallen off his stool.
Thank you for being my friend.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the first episode of the D1 and Done pod, presented by... Do we have any... No, we're presented by no one. Please check for us, Nick. We are presented by no one, but we are so excited to have our first episode of our first season here on a wonderful Sunday, or it could be Monday or Tuesday, whatever day you could be possibly listening to us. I'm Robby Donahoe, Nick Mills to my left, Dusty Mills to my right. Guys, we finally made it. We're here. It took a long time to get to this point. I think we've been talking about this for probably over a decade. Dusty and I, maybe 20 years. I don't know if there were podcasts back in the year 2000. But regardless, make sure you give us a follow on Facebook, D1 and Done Pod. We're also on Twitter and Instagram. Wherever you may be listening to this podcast, though, more than likely it's on Spotify, and we imagine we'll probably be pushing out to Spotify going forward. But guys, we're here. We made it. What a great week of college basketball. Before we jump into everything with college hoops, we got a great show lined up for you. We're going to talk a little bit about the big headlines from the week. We're going to talk a little bit about this, I guess you could call it a quasi-documentary called Divine Providence. If you haven't heard about that, making a bunch of waves in the Northeast, so we may inform you a little bit. We're going to get to one of my favorite subjects. We're going to talk about the Indiana Hoosiers and what the heck is going on there. We're also going to give our Final Four teams to watch out for at the mid-major level. We're going to talk a little betting with our locks of the week, look ahead to the week ahead, and also get your viewer interactions. But first off, quick introductions from all of us. You already know me. I'm Robby. Nick, Dusty. Nick, tell the world a little bit about yourself, your fandom, your love for college hoops.
No, it's funny. I'm like oddly nervous. It feels like the first day of school. You have to give like two truths and a lie.
It's always such a good time.
It's always the worst icebreakers because you never think of anything interesting about yourself or anything.
Yeah.
So, hello, I'm Nick. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you loud and clear.
It's
I do have a Tony Reale mute button over here,
that.
so I can push that down if I need to.
And you can adjust my knob if need be, right?
Correct, yes.
Perfect. Appreciate it. But I guess, yeah, so I'm Nick, and I guess for people who don't know, me and Dusty are brothers. You two, I guess, grew up together. Is that fair?
We did. I would say we grew up together, yeah.
And so I'm glad I could be the third wheel. Thanks for having me, by the way, because
of course,
originally supposed to be just you guys, so I'm glad I could be here. But
we need the third wheel. Dusty and I are together, but we always need a third wheel.
And that's the only single guy in my friend group. I'm quite used to it, being the 5th, 7th, 9th, 11th wheel. And also, I guess...
Are we going to do a weekly update on your dating endeavors? And
I'll give you an update.
Okay,
Still
good.
single.
Wonderful.
There's your update for the week.
That one is presented by Tinder.
Or Grindr. To each their own.
Either one.
To each their
Yeah,
own.
absolutely.
But I guess, yeah, I'm a Kentucky fan, so me and Dusty both went to University of Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Love college basketball, and that's me.
That's Nick. Dusty, a little bit more about you.
Dusty Mills. Nick and I are brothers, actually 10 years
I
apart.
said that.
I know. I'm adding on to it.
Thank you.
Actually, we are 10 years apart, though, is what I was
That's a good
adding.
point.
Still very close. Robby and I have been friends since kindergarten, maybe preschool, I would guess.
Since the first United days, yeah.
Yeah, he stole the friendship, my heart with his friendship when I heard him do the solo at church during one of our plays.
Wow.
Yep.
Never knew that was where it all began.
I know.
You did solos at church?
Oh, yeah. The Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego.
It's the
Living
only-
in Judah a long time ago.
It cleansed my audio palette to be able to enjoy Freddie Mercury later in my life. So thank you for starting that out for me.
Well, see, I'm glad you weren't in my elementary school because you would
A
have
lot
heard
of
me
men
sing,
enjoyed Freddie Mercury later in their lives.
Also true. There was a time when I did a solo at my elementary school where I talked about an Irish rainbow up in the Irish sky, and I did an entire solo song about this in front of about a couple hundred people at Hinkle Creek Elementary School.
That should be our entry music.
I'm sure my mom has it on an old videotape somewhere, an old VHS. So, okay, we may find that at some point. But anyway, please continue.
Lifelong, obsessively loved college basketball. Actually grew up a University of Florida fan. I was a huge Gator fan as a kid, just from going to Disney World all the time. Family, mom side's all IU, dad side's all Kentucky. Have cheered for both teams my entire life, more on the Kentucky side. Ended up going to the University of Kentucky. We'll get into that. Spent time there as a walk-on and a very, what would you call it, controversial freshman year. A story that I'm sure we'll come back to plenty of times. But
we're gonna hear
I've
a lot,
loved college basketball my entire life. I used to keep binders back in the day, tracking every single game of every season starting usually about January 15th. The three of us love the conference tournaments. We'll dive deep into that.
Yeah.
Just quick fact, Nick and I are attending the SEC tournament again this year. Between the three of us, I think we've been to a combined about 40 plus.
I was going to say, so I've been to 7 for sure.
I've been every year since 2009.
And this will be my 19th, so probably year 14th or 15th.
If you throw in the Big Ten tournaments for me, I'm in the double digits, but I mean, we obviously don't count the Big Ten tournament because it's not the SEC tournament.
It's not. There's only one conference tournament.
Yeah. We'll have a lot of more stories about our SEC tournament fun, I'm sure.
And real quick, I'm glad it's kind of fun we're starting this time of year because, like I said, we're a month away from conference
Month
tournaments.
away.
We're kind of like the guys who started a group project really late in the school year because we're pretty like, what? It's February 3rd right now, 4th, whatever it is. So,
by the way, we're only like 5 minutes into this, and I can already go through like all the stories. Like I'm thinking about, remember the Final Four Dreams restaurant we did in grade school?
Yes.
We're going to talk. We
did the remix to Ying Twin song.
We sure did. We've got so many great stories coming up. But so you're probably wondering where the pod name came from, obviously. So Dusty, as Dusty mentioned, I don't know. I mean, Dusty is much more humble than he used to be. It's debatable.
I got married.
You did get married, and that kind of set you back a little bit. Or we should mention, you married up big time, as did myself.
Correct.
So, but Dusty
I'm
played,
still single, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. Just another update.
We do need a 5-minute update on your singleness. It's presented by no one. So the D1 and Done pod, the name came from Dusty because Dusty actually played Division I college basketball. He did play in a physical Division I men's college basketball game. Do you remember the date at Houston?
No. Well, Texas Southern was the first time.
Okay, Texas Southern was the first one. Okay.
That was mid-November. The meaningful game was at Houston, December, I'm going to guess
I'll look it up.
15th maybe.
Okay.
It's around there. It was on ESPN. Phi Slamma Jamma. A lot of you would know who that is. The famous Houston teams from the early 80s with Hakeem Olajuwon, Clyde Drexler. They were being honored that night.
McGrady was there,
I did
too.
not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hakeem, my lifelong growing up here, I'm a big Houston Rockets fan, was not there, but Clyde Drexler was. I remember Keith Bogans was in attendance, Tracy McGrady.
Why was Keith? Because Keith Bogans, was he playing for the Rockets at the time?
Yes. So when I checked into the game at Houston, we were only down 7 or 8 with about a minute 15 left, and I'll never forget checking in, and there's about 7 of them sitting on the baseline, and they're probably like, "Who the hell is this catching the ball right?" And that was pretty cool. I actually recorded an assist and 2 fouls because my teammates didn't know to foul for some reason.
So you did not get a trillion that game. You were actually
factored
into the box score.
Yeah, I'm not about that team.
So if we pull up the box score from that game, we would see Dusty Mills.
0 for 1 from the field. I did get blocked on a layup. 1 assist, which for my career, just so you know, I had 3 assists and 0 turnovers.
Yeah, I'm a basketball reference. It's so cool. That's your name.
I don't think I've ever looked into this. This is incredible.
By the way, December 18th, 2007.
Okay.
December 18th. Okay. I remember when you came home, I think later that summer, and I came over wearing a Kentucky basketball jersey, and I had taped the number 4 on the back and put Mills at the top. I still have that in my home.
Well, there's a fun fact for everyone is one of the cooler parts of that year is I wore number 4. The year before, Rajon Rondo wore number 4.
So continuing the legacy of point guards in Kentucky.
Yeah, so 2 things about that. I assume Rondo was not happy when he saw who's wearing his jersey the next year. But 2, this is pre-NIL, so names were not on the back of the jersey, but there are so many number 4 jerseys at Kentucky games. So it looked like everyone's wearing my jersey. I'm sure they would have anyways, but they had no choice.
You are telling me all these. I've never heard you say any of this, so this is incredible. I'm getting stories out of all this. So Dusty played
You mentioned how humble he is. Like, he never talks about it. So,
he doesn't.
I don't know
That's why
all these stories.
We're learning just along with all of you that are probably listening to this right now. So Dusty played at Kentucky. We'll touch on his time at Ball State. We'll get to that at some point. But again, the name D1, that's Dusty. And then Nick and I, we flamed out very quickly in high school. Well, for myself, I can't speak for you.
Hey, I'm a 2-time varsity letterman over here. I scored 8 points my senior year.
Actually, no, I am a 2-time as well, but I only played basketball. Did you get a letter jacket?
Oh, yeah.
You did? What else did you play?
It
was just basketball?
It may have changed, but if you had 2 letters for a sport, you got a letterman jacket.
It was 3 when they told me it was. Maybe they just didn't have the money for a
fun
letter
part
jacket.
of my story, I didn't qualify for a letterman jacket.
How did you not qualify?
Didn't give me
They
my
must have
football
changed.
letter. Yeah, I don't
They
know.
must have changed the requirements when we were there. Anyway,
participation
my
trophies.
sister got a letter jacket.
Participation letterman jacket.
My sister stopped playing volleyball in like freshman year of high school and basketball, and she got a letter jacket because she was a trainer. So you got a letter for being a trainer.
Wait. So we're talking about he's D1 over there. I'm the only one on here with a Letterman jacket. Huh.
Wow. Quite a distinction.
Those are my
Congratulations.
Change the name of the show.
D1 and Nick's Letterman jacket pod. So there's a little bit of background behind Dusty, and obviously Nick and I both having our moments when we were playing in high school. I did D up Eric Gordon my junior year of high school and locked him down on one possession. We're not going to talk about any of the other possessions, but that's kind of my, I guess you could talk about my claim to fame.
Also, one last thing. You worked as what, a sports reporter
I
for a long
did.
time?
So, if you don't, obviously, I would assume most people who know or download this pod that know all of us know my time from being on WCBI TV in Columbus, Mississippi. I was the sports director for 5 years, sports reporter and anchor for the other 2. Went down there initially, not thinking I was going to fall in love with the SEC, and then just got all involved in Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Alabama. I've got plenty of fun stories from that. So we can dive into all that fun stuff later on in the show. But we wanted to give a quick just introduction on us, the background on the pod, everything about that. But you came to listen about college basketball.
Yes,
and that's why we're all here. We love college hoops. We just got done watching the Purdue-Wisconsin game. Boilermakers got a big win over the Badgers. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Thank you very much. But I want to talk about, so I want to start with Dusty. So this is the part of the show. We got our quick intro, talk a little bit about ourselves. These are the D1 and Done headlines. We're going to start with Dusty. I think the big topic between all of us right now is what happened last night for Kentucky, what happened with what was going on with John Calipari. So Dusty's D1 and Done headline, John Calipari and Kentucky.
It's the timeline at this point on John Calipari. I have been an advocate.
By the way, is it Calipari or Calipari? I feel like I hear both pronunciations.
I've always said Calipari.
Swear to God, I do not know.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone knows then. Okay, anyways, didn't mean to get off track.
It's just been Coach Cal for the longest time.
Coach Cal, yeah.
I've called. I've been an advocate of him since day one.
Mm-hmm.
Fun fact: also, the day I signed my papers to transfer to Ball State, the next day he was hired at Kentucky. Wish I could go back on that one.
Did not know that either.
So Calipari, I'd say the fan base was pretty 50-50 on being sick of him, wanting to keep him. I'm still fine with him, honestly. I think part of that is he brings in talent that other coaches can't. The lack of in-season adjustments freaks me out, which he continues to do. I do not understand the constant man-to-man defense. I don't understand not being able to just stop a high pick and roll, which is their issue against Tennessee last night. For those that don't know, they lost to number 5 Tennessee at home.
But also, with how mobile Kentucky's bigs are, how can they not guard a high pick and roll?
Honestly, I hate to say this. It's the first time in a long time I'll say it looks like a lack of effort.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
And that's what we were kind of talking about last night, and I assume we'll get to that here momentarily.
Their offense is superior. It is very good, and I think they can outscore teams. And there comes to a point where you can't. I would much rather be Houston and stopping everyone, holding everyone to 54 points a game, than Kentucky, and you have to outscore because the second you get cold, or what happens to them or has the last 2 weeks is the other team gets hotter than you, you can't come back from that. You can't be down 14 every single game.
Nick, you were a part of it as well. I want to get your thoughts on what's going on with Kentucky.
Calipari, what the heck it is we could do a whole hour on him. He's one of the most interesting things, because Dabo gets compared to. So basically, just Cal's never an in-game coach. That's never been his thing. X's and O's have driven me insane forever, but he always got the most out of every single player. So basically from 2010 to 2019 is Final Four, Sweet 16s, Elite Eight every single year. And now since 2019, since Tower Hero hit the shot in Sweet 16, they have one tournament win now.
That's crazy.
In 5 years.
I don't think I realized that.
One tournament win.
And that was last year, wasn't it?
Last year over
when they beat
11
Providence.
seeded Providence. Is their one tournament win since March of 2019. Again, I don't know. I still like Calipari. We still... The sky is still a limit for this team. I believe that, but they truly can lose to anyone. This is the first team in a while I don't have a feel for. I don't know what to expect night in, night out.
And I thought we were getting a feel for them the last couple of weeks, but then the DJ Wagner injury has kind of messed things. The Big Z issues have kind of threw a wrench into this whole thing.
15 days ago was the Big Z game. They've lost 3 or 4 since then. And the one game they won
was dreadful to watch. Arkansas, people don't know how their own issues right now. Yeah. Again, it could be freshmen having the dog days of summer. I'm not saying the panic meter, but it's just kind of my whole point is I do not know what to make of this team, and Calipari as a whole. again, there's no adjustments ever. It seems like it's getting worse every year. I'm not saying fire him, but like it's not completely out of the question anymore, which I think is a fair thing to say.
So what I've seen, obviously, is the injuries. They need Wagner back.
Yeah, for people who don't know, they've yet to play a game with a full roster this year.
Correct.
Right.
That is correct. And they do have the talent to win a national championship they could get a 9 seed and go run the table.
I feel like they've done that before, by the way. 8 seed, sorry, not a 9
Wichita
seed.
State.
But in the last couple of weeks, they have had Mitchell has completely disappeared. I do not know.
Yeah, where's he been?
He had 2 points last night, maybe.
Apparently it came out today he's dealing with a back, is what they're claiming.
Okay. Well, Onyesu's kind of been the guy that's been their guy off the bench that's kind of brought some
He's been
energy.
great defensively, but he cannot.
He's not an offensive threat for them.
Not at all.
Whenever the ball's in his hand, nothing good happens. Yeah. He can't catch. He can't hit layups. Does everything else great, though.
I saw Rob Dillingham, who had a great game last night, 35.
He played well, yeah.
Came out and said it's all an effort thing, which is great. We'll now go prove it. They have Vanderbilt and Gonzaga this week. Those should be double-digit victories. We'll see. And then the other one is Reed Shepherd. God bless him. He should be the heart and soul of this team. The fan base wants him. His father, for those that don't know, played there. His mother played at Kentucky as well. He's possibly the worst off-ball defender I've seen in a long time. They beat Florida if he knows how to stay on his man.
And it's not even like he's unathletic white guy thing. No, he's so overly aggressive at times.
Yes.
He just leaves his man wide open so often it kills them.
Yes.
And if he's the heart and soul of the team, I feel like you kind of got to have a little bit of a swagger and energy to him. He keeps to himself, which I'm not necessarily it's saying it's a bad thing, but I mean he is one of their best players, but he's got to get an edge to him. I feel like he plays.
Well, that's why I think
I don't know.
DJ Wagner to me is their biggest X factor. They're 0-3 when he does not play. It's not their best player, but like he just defensively, he just has a speed that no one else has. He has like NBA level speed, and I think he's the guy guarding Ziegler last night who torched them.
Yeah,
so I think he is, for lack of better, like they're truly their most important player, not their best player.
I will say this: Tennessee was shot out of their minds last night. And they probably won't do that the rest of the year. Like Josiah Jordan-James is not a very good shooter, and he was making everything. Dalton Knecht, obviously a very good player, and so is Zakai Ziegler. But like some of those baskets that Tennessee was making, was like these guys haven't shot this like this all season long. So you got to come into that. But also, this is also coming off a loss at home to Florida in overtime, where you just botched the end of that game too. So I've been
they have 3 home losses this year. Granted, those are 3 games Wagner did not play in.
Yeah,
but still.
And I've been saying it for weeks. Is Kentucky has the highest ceiling of probably any of the top teams in college basketball, but also by far the lowest floor. Yeah. And we're seeing that floor right now.
So I guess, Robby, since you're the non-Kentucky fan here, what do you think they should do with Calipari as we sit here February 4th?
To be honest, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what you do. So my thought when you're talking about a coach and trying to move on from a different coach, I think it's, okay, who are you going to go and get then? And I'm not sure. I mean, what I've been disappointed in and what we've talked about last night is the fact that they just do not care about defending at all. Like, it's how quick can we get them to shoot a shot and maybe we go rebound so we can go play offense some more. And that's very uncommon of a Cal team because Calipari's teams almost always focus on how good they can be defensively. And that's the other part of this thing that I think the ceiling is so high for them is if they can ever find a way to figure it out defensively, then they're going to be good. But it's beginning of February. If you haven't figured out how to play man-to-man defense now, I don't know if it's going to happen.
And there's been no signs of improvement either. It's like they're steadily getting better.
Right.
No, it seems like it's just as bad as it was at Thanksgiving.
My final thought on Calipari is twofold. Number one, he has to win the postseason this year. Needs to.
Yes, absolutely.
Just a fact on him. So since he came to Kentucky in 2010, from 2010 through 2015, and 15 was their undefeated team that lost to Wisconsin in the Final Four. Cal was 22-4 in the NCAA tournament. 22-4.
From 2015, say missed the tournament in 2013. So 4 straight times they made the tournament, they made the Final Four all 4 times. That's just what they did.
And that includes 2010, they're probably the best team in the country, got upset by West Virginia. 2012 won the title. 2015, they're undefeated, probably the best team in the country. Since then, in the tournament, they did have 2 Elite 8 runs, lost to North Carolina and Auburn. But he's 10-6 in the tournament. I would argue that Sheway team that lost to St. Peter's, I personally thought was the best team in the country.
That was a really good team, yeah.
I believe that was the year they ran Kansas out of Allen Fieldhouse by 30.
And Kansas went on to win the Natty.
Yeah, and then Kansas won the national title. So I think it just comes down to I can speak firsthand how crazy this fan base is. I love the Kentucky fan base, but I'll just leave it at that. He needs to win this year or people are coming for his head.
he's still a year. I think there's still a year away from even making.
I
rash
personally
decisions.
don't want him on the hot seat. I love Calipari.
Yeah, and also I don't think it helps the program and the team going forward if he's on the hot seat. So I will leave it on Kentucky for this. 27th in KenPom right now. They're 101st in defensive efficiency. There is no other team in the top 50 of KP that is even in the 90s.
And KenPom goes back to 1997, the worst defensive team to win the Natty, with Baylor a couple years ago at 44th.
And that Baylor team was crazy good defensively towards the end.
Davion Mitchell was like maybe the best defender in the country.
So if they're not figuring it out now, I don't know if they ever will. And it's definitely very concerning. So that's on Kentucky. But, man, it was a really big weekend. We obviously had Purdue, Wisconsin. We had Kentucky, Tennessee. We had Houston, Kansas. And then we had Duke, North Carolina, Nick. And is North Carolina starting to separate themselves as probably one of the top teams in the country right now?
I think so. So this was my headliner, Duke, UNC.
That's what they call a segue in the business, by the way.
It was very smooth, Robbie.
That's what I like to do.
Hey, shout out to you, Robbie. So Duke, UNC. I put ACC as a whole, so we'll get to that too here.
Okay.
But yeah, UNC, I mean, because it's funny, like, I think we talk about, like, the top teams. It's Houston, it's UConn, it's Purdue. I think UNC kind of just gets forgotten about here. They looked awesome last night.
Why is that?
I don't know. Because they have names. They have RJ Davis. Yeah, RJ Davis.
Is it because of last year when they were number one in the country
so.
And they didn't make the tournament? I feel like we kind of have that little bit of a hangover of what that happened last year.
And I think so, too. And I think we lean towards coaches quite often. Hubert, despite having runner-up already on his resume, he's still kind of new to the whole thing, so I think it happens too. But yeah, big win last night. I have it right here. They're 19-4. 3 of the 4 losses are by 4 less points. Like, they're pretty much, and the other one was UConn and MSG, which that's just no one wins against UConn and MSG. So I think they're one. I mean, I think in that first year at this point, Robbie, I think one of the best teams in the country. And by the way, shout out Baycott. He had 20, 10, and 5 last night.
He was great.
In his previous 3 games, he only had combined 19 points, 20 rebounds. So they need that. And so yeah, UNC, I think one of the best teams in the country. I just don't get why they don't get talked about.
So now you bring me up another conversation point. Purdue, UConn, North Carolina, I feel like have separated themselves from the rest of the country right now. I mean, you can make an argument for Kansas, maybe Houston or Tennessee, but I think there's a first tier and a second tier right now to college basketball, and it's North Carolina, UConn, Purdue is that first tier. Would you agree?
That's what I would have. I'm sure a lot of people would probably just have UConn, Purdue. But I'll put UNC.
No, I'd put North Carolina in there now.
I always like to say the first tier, usually when you get to February, is we talk about separating themselves. It's when you see the schedule, like if I'm looking at who's playing Monday through Sunday of this week, I always look for those top tier teams, and do I think there's a chance in hell they're going to lose? And those are 3 teams that I do not think will lose another game unless it's like Wisconsin today. I know. Sorry, Purdue fans. Robby had Wisconsin money line in his gambling.
I did.
I think there's a chance in hell Wisconsin was going to win that game. I've only watched them twice this year, but there's a feel for when you see the superior teams play. It is Carolina, it is UConn, it is Purdue right now. They definitely separate themselves from everyone else.
And I think Kansas could be in that conversation, but the fact that they shot 69% from the field against Houston, nice. And Houston actually still was in that game towards the end. Makes me think, I mean, we'll get to Kansas and talk about them a little bit more. I like them, but there's still something about them that rubs me the wrong way. On the ACC...
But real quick on Kansas, they've lost to UCF, West Virginia.
They have some bad losses.
They just have weird results.
They have really bad losses.
Almost lost in Assembly. Should have lost in Assembly.
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that IU thing here in a second.
But that's also been Kansas since Self got there. I mean, how many times have they been a 1 or 2 seed in the tournament and been upset?
I had a great stat that I found that Bill Self has won 96% of his games at Allen Fieldhouse. 96%.
That sounds made up.
How is that even possible?
Which makes that Kentucky win even more impressive.
Agreed. Yes, absolutely it does. But the ACC as a whole...
I really want to talk about the ACC.
Man...
This is year 3 of it being down. I know UNC, Duke both made runs to Final Four 2 years ago. I know Miami made a Final Four last year.
Just to give the overview of the conference right now, and by the way, I didn't see the final score of this game.
94-85.
Louisville did beat Florida State yesterday.
What?
101-92. I can't believe that. That was a game that was off the radar. So... The ACC, North Carolina's on top at 10-1 in the conference. I'm going through conference records here. Virginia 8-3, Duke 7-3, NC State 7-4, Florida State, who we thought were going to be down 6-4, Wake Forest is okay, decent 6-4, Miami, who had that great run last year, they're only 6-5 in the conference. They did. Syracuse, Pitt, Virginia Tech, all 4, 5, and 6. Clemson was getting a ton of hype going into this season after they had that great start. They're now 4 and 6 in the conference, tied with Boston College. Georgia Tech, how did they beat North Carolina earlier this week?
And Duke.
And then Louisville and Notre Dame are 2 and 9 in the conference, 7 and 15 overall. There is one great team, one good team, and everyone else is average in the ACC. What on earth has happened?
And as we see here today, 3 teams are projected in the tournament. Clemson's actually a 6 seed, which kind of shocks me.
Clemson is a 6 seed?
According to Bracket Matrix, which, by the way, shout out Bracket Matrix.
Bracket Matrix is
That's
great,
the way
yes.
to go. If people
Yeah.
know, it takes the 50 best bracketologists and just combines them into one.
Somehow I'm not on there. I don't know why.
It's the best, but yeah, it's a bad conference. Basically, every notable program, Louisville, Syracuse, Virginia, who's 7-3, but they're all just...
Throw Pitt in there, too. Pitt hasn't been good since Jamie Dixon.
Florida State, who was good for a long time.
Florida State had a couple of really good teams with Leonard Hamilton.
They're all just down right now. And like my point earlier, this is year 3 of this. It's just been a below-average Power 5 conference, and for the longest time, it was the premier basketball conference.
It was, yeah.
It's just, I don't know, and I don't really see it getting better anytime soon. I guess maybe if... I can think of a new coach at Syracuse. Maybe if he is better than Louisville hires a new coach and Shrewsbury gets to go Notre Dame, maybe you can start turning around a little bit. But just, I don't know. This conference just feels kind of directionless right now to me.
I still have hope for Miami because they still have a really good team coming back. And if Miami's kind of become my new Xavier, when they get to March, that's a team I'm going to pick to win. And I like them, and they still have a lot of really good talent. So I'm curious how Miami ends up going. But yeah, the ACC, wow! Like Virginia was really bad at the start of the season. Now they're second in the league,
and they're still just they're still kind of underwhelming. Like it's not
very underwhelming. Yeah, Virginia's not whelming anyone. Anyway,
yeah,
anything from you on the ACC?
No, I just want to see a picture of Jim Larinaga one time with sunscreen on his nose on South Beach. Like, do you think that's how he spends days after a tough loss?
He does that, yeah. He's one of those coaches that I think he does preparation, but he probably goes home right after the game, like an hour after the game, and has a glass of red wine. Just this big lazy boy. Yeah.
Him and Leonard Hamilton as well.
Oh, Leonard Hamilton.
Who's more out of place? Is it Larinaga in Miami or Cronin in Hollywood?
Ooh, that's a good question. We're not even going to mention the Pac-12, but the Pac-12's awful, too.
I just love you think of LA, think of glitz and glamour, and then there's Mick Cronin.
Yeah, that fit. When we thought it was going well for UCLA, it's going very bad very quickly for the Bruins. They are bad this year.
To parlay back to Kentucky, I think, honestly, this was in my notes. I think I was doing the math on Calipari assistants over his tenure here. He needs to get Kenny Payne back. Their defensive numbers with Kenny Payne were the best, 7 years in his stint.
You know who agrees with you? Louisville.
Everyone.
I was going to say Kenny Payne probably
Louisville
too.
fans.
I think he may be available coming up soon. I'm not going to mention that.
Well, that was part of the reasoning behind it.
Of course, yeah. All right, my D1 and done headline is the Big Ten race. Purdue with a big win over Wisconsin today, a place that Purdue has actually done well playing at the Kohl Center in the past. But obviously they had to exercise some demons today. Got a really good game from Lance Jones. Fletcher Lawyer hit some big shots. Purdue's been playing really well, but they're at the top of the Big Ten right now, 10-2 in the league. Wisconsin there for a while. We were starting to think that they may run away with this because they won a couple of really tough games early on, but now they're 8-3 in the conference. Purdue has a game in hand. Purdue plays IU at home this Saturday. I don't know what's going to happen out of that game, and we'll talk about the week ahead later on in the show. But Illinois sitting in third at 7-3. But my mention here is, and I'm sure we have a lot of people on here who like the Big Ten and obviously have teams that they support in the Big Ten. Purdue, Wisconsin, Illinois are definitely the top 3 in the Big Ten. Bless you.
Thank you.
Who is the 4th best team in the Big Ten? Because right now, Northwestern, Nebraska, Michigan State, Minnesota, Maryland, Penn State, IU, Iowa, all separated by one game. They all have 5 or 6 losses. And IU just lost we'll get to IU here in a moment. But Ohio State is awful. They are not good. And they've got a lot of talent on that team.
Is Holtman?
This is Holtman. It's Holtman's last year. He's not going to be back next year. I actually took the time to watch Michigan and Rutgers yesterday, and I want that time back because that was one of the worst basketball games I've ever seen. I made a mention that I think conferences that are better this year in college basketball than the Big Ten, the American is better than the Big Ten. The Mountain West is definitely better than the Big Ten.
We'll get to them. My favorite conference.
We already know the Big 12 is. I think the Big Ten is better than the Pac-12.
Yeah.
I would even say the Atlantic 10 may be a better conference than the Big Ten this year. That's maybe pushing it, but it's the middle and the bottom of the conference of the Big Ten that is just so horrifically bad. Michigan is awful. What has happened? What has happened to Ohio State? Iowa, Iowa's going to be Iowa. Penn State is actually playing way above their level and ability. Maryland has been a massive disappointment this year. We have a whole section on IU coming up here in a moment, but I don't know who else is going to be good out of the Big Ten that's the fourth best team, because I thought it was Northwestern, and then they squandered a lead late against Minnesota on Saturday. Nebraska's only good at home. Michigan State, it's as your good pal Brady would say, January, February Izzo is coming up soon.
I was just about to say, can we nix that phrase?
Yeah,
on the show?
We're not doing that on this show. That's not going to happen. I will not allow it. So I don't know who the fourth best team in the Big Ten is, and I don't know if there even is.
You kind of took my answer. I was going to say, can I just do like non-applicable?
Yeah.
Can we just do it?
D, none of the above.
Yeah, it was crazy too, because obviously the Big Ten, as much as like as SEC fans like to make fun of the Big Ten, like it's been the best conference 4 straight years now. Like it seems like getting 9 teams in the conference.
I don't know if it was last year.
Okay,
but before that, yes, definitely.
Okay, it seems like it was, other than the Big 12, maybe the deepest conference.
Yes, definitely.
You had like 10 teams making a term every year.
Yeah.
And now this year, like I think it's Northwestern. I think
so too.
Because they just have Boo Booey and they have a win against Purdue, and it seems like they can somewhat play on the road on like Nebraska ball, who Hoiberg does not like to travel. Evidently, not sure what's going on there.
They're a great team at home, and they are a below average team on the road. There was a Purdue fan that had a sign at the Northwestern game on Wednesday that had Boo Booey's headshot in a LinkedIn picture that says "Open to Work" because he's 25 years old. It was really funny. It made me laugh a lot. But yeah, I would say Northwestern too. I think Michigan. Does Michigan State figure it out? Are they going to get it figured out?
By the way, Michigan State's a 9th seed right now on bracket matrix. They're safely in. I guess what is figure out? Like, is it just, are they going to upset someone in the second round, get to the Sweet 16?
I mean, they did it last year
right?
against Marquette.
So it feels like they are candidate for like figure out in the sense of like,
if
they're one of the favorites going, or like not even favorites, like they're at the top, I don't know, 5 seed going the margin. No, I don't think that's on the card.
If Michigan State sees a team that has a big guy that gets points, I think they're going to be in trouble, because Michigan State's presence inside is like, this is probably one of the first years that I think Tom Izzo has a team that has no presence at all in the paint. None. And it's weird. It's weird to watch Michigan State right now. They seem so out of sorts.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem right.
Especially, they brought everyone back. And
they lost no one outside of Hauser.
Yeah.
They lost no one else.
Then this is probably a lesson we all probably think of sometimes. Sometimes we bring everyone back from a 7 seed. Sometimes they're just that.
You're a
forget
7
that-
seed for a reason.
People forget that Michigan State had a losing record in the Big Ten last year.
I would know it. It's kind of like how we talk about that UNC team that went to the championship. They're the preseason number 1. It's like, really?
It's
the same
they're
team.
an 8 seed the prior season for a reason.
You wonder kind of how that,
So,
little ebbs and flows there.
I did see that this Wednesday Nebraska and Northwestern play at Northwestern, so that could be a de facto, let's see who the fourth best
I bet
team
Northwestern wins that game by 15. I kid you not. I
At
bet they
home,
win by 15.
yeah.
Yeah,
So-
Northwestern at home,
But
The
just
Big
off,
Ten 4th place game. Can't
yeah,
wait.
just off resume, I do think it has to be Northwestern, but this is also a good time to remind our viewers that our co-host Nick was born in 1999, and you Big Ten fans have seen one national championship since then.
That's what I was about to mention.
And
at
Nick
Purdue,
is not old enough to remember. So,
So I think
Oh, Dusty, I can count Maryland in 02.
oh yeah, grandfather.
we don't count that one. We don't grandfather that in. But I should mention, so of the teams in the Big Ten that have played for a national championship in the last 20 years, 24 years.
I'm 25, by the way.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan's played for a national title, lost to Villanova. Ohio State played for a national title, lost to Florida.
Michigan State.
IU played for a national title and lost to Maryland. We're not grandfathering that in. Michigan State has played for multiple national championships against North Carolina.
Does this one count? Michigan lost to Louisville.
No, that was removed. That doesn't count. We weren't going to mention that. Illinois obviously lost their national championship to North Carolina, and Wisconsin lost their national title to Duke. That's 6 teams in the Big Ten that have played for a national championship in the last 20-plus years, and no national titles from the conference that we have said in the past that's the best conference in the country.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Well, by the way, are you still
Yeah,
single?
I'm still single, by the way.
I was just
Actually-
mentioning.
Next show, I should just download
Trying to
like
figure that
Hinge
out.
while I'm on the show.
Okay, while we are on the topic of the Big Ten, we've kind of been skirting around talking about Indiana, and I think this is worthy of being delved into a little bit more. So we got through our headlines, and then we've got 2 other like side headlines that I want to get into that we go more in depth on.
Sidelines.
Sideline, I like that.
Look at
That's
that.
good. We have to bring that up. This IU team is awful, and they're so bad. And I think anyone who's an IU fan probably would completely agree with me. Now, when you look back at like the best IU teams of the past, even in the last 20, 25 years or so, they've always had a player from the state of Indiana that they could look to. This year's team, is Trey Galloway their best player from the state of Indiana?
I'm not sure
who else is.
Yeah, who's else?
CJ Gunn is from
CJ
Indiana.
Gunn, Anthony Leal.
Anthony Leal's from Bloomington.
It's runaway Trey Galloway, which I like Trey Galloway. I think it's a lot of hate, but that should not be.
He's a solid player.
He should not be your playmaker and your
He's a solid
best guy
player.
from Indiana.
So he's a solid role player off the bench.
Yes.
A 6 or 7.
So these are, by the way, this is a Purdue fan and Kentucky fans talking about IU, which I'm sure they're going to love.
I got a master's degree from IU.
You do, that's right. So let me
Mastered the whole school.
Let me just run through some numbers here
For
on
people
IU.
who don't know, by
okay?
the way, Dusty went to like 3 different colleges, so try and keep up with all the colleges.
So IU's last Final Four was 2002. That was when they beat Oklahoma and Kelvin Sampson in that first game, and then lost to Maryland and Juan Dixon. That was a really good Maryland team. Their last national title team was 1987 when Keith Smart hit the shot. Their 92-93 team was probably arguably the best team they've had in the last 30 years. Or so. That team had Damon Bailey from Bedford, Brian Evans, who's from Terre Haute, who's still very involved around the state. Calipari Cheney was from Evansville, and Alan Henderson went to Brebeuf. The 2002 team had Jared Jeffries and Tom Coverdale, Bloomington and Noblesville. The 2013 team had Jordan Holes from Bloomington, Yogi Farrell from Park Tudor, Cody Zeller played at Washington. Since that 13 team, it's almost as if it's like this team doesn't recognize it, doesn't look like a normal Indiana team. They've had James Blackman from Marion. Okay. You've had Romeo Langford, Rob Finnessy, Armand Franklin, who eventually transferred and started doing really well at Virginia. Trace Jackson Davis is probably their last, at least good, really, really good, if not great player from the state of Indiana. Over the last 4 to 5 years, they have not got a recruit from the state of Indiana. We are not counting Christian Lander. They have not gotten a top recruit from the state of Indiana that's in the top 5 in the state.
that's crazy. That really is crazy.
From when we were growing up, Dustin and I were growing up, like Indiana was the premier school in the state, and it wasn't even close. Purdue was second, obviously. Now, the top player from the state of Indiana from the last 4 years, okay, Trey Kaufman-Wren from Sellersburg, Indiana, he went to Purdue. That should never have happened. Jalen Washington was going to go to Purdue and then got the bag and then went to North Carolina. And then Xavier Booker, who was overrated. We're not counting him. So then Miles Coleman was the second best player. He went to Purdue. The best players from the state of Indiana are going to Purdue. And it's almost as if Indiana doesn't want to recruit the state of Indiana. And they're just getting the guys that they feel like they just, okay, we need to get that guy. CJ Gunn's that we need to get that guy because he's from Indiana. Why not recruit the best players from the state of Indiana from a state that is one of, I would say, probably the top 5 high school basketball state in the country? What has happened to Indiana when it comes to recruiting? And why are they just going after the guys with stars?
Their biggest issue, in my opinion, is they see themselves as a national brand, and they haven't been one in 30 years.
Okay.
I did see that, and I was stunned by this because I started to do the research about Mr. Basketballs. From 1939 till 2000, IU had 22 of the Mr. Basketballs went to IU. I thought that number would go down a lot, but you just said there's a couple flops in there. Mm-hmm. There have been 7 since 2000.
So Romeo Langford was one, and that one
so that's
quick.
the Jordan Holes.
Jordan Holes, yep. Anthony Leal.
But it seems like those guys who come to IU, like let's use a Romeo, for example, there seemed to be an entitlement issue with him, and that doesn't seem to be the main issue. So now you do look at the top, like who is coaching, who's developing. But it's almost like they think they can go get the Mr. Basketball, then surround people from the rest of the country, and there's not cohesiveness. No one is buying into the Hoosier hysteria persona. And I thought Woodson would do that, but I think his NBA background is hurting him more than it's helping him.
I think it is too, yeah.
And they played too slow of a game. They need to get that senior engineering class needs to get out. I do know they have a solid sophomore class, but even looking at that class right now, that's Renew, Ware, Gunn, Banks.
Renew's their best player.
Renew.
Malik Renew's actually a very good player. But again, not from the state of Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but to me, the biggest issue right there is, let's just say for IU fans, you cut clean. You say next year, Woodson's 4th year, now we're going to start building. Their biggest issue is they never have a freaking point guard, really since Yogi, that really stands out to me. Man. And is it this Cups kid from Ohio? He was Ohio Mr. Basketball.
Solid player.
Yeah, won a state championship. His dad was his coach. I mean, so there's probably a leadership mechanism there, but they need a point guard to build around, and they do not have that. Now, if you're Woodson, I do think you cut the fat right now. say, these are my guys. I'm going to start building going forward right now. I do not think he should be on the hot seat at the moment. That could change quickly.
A lot of IU fans would disagree with you.
I bet I'm deep in the minority, like 10%. But he needs to find continuity. He needs to be just more about building IU back to what it was, because it is the coolest place to me to watch college basketball. I love that arena.
It's a great place. Yes, unbiased. It I mean, I think Mackey is better because I'm partially biased, but Assembly Hall is legitimately a fantastic place to watch a basketball game.
My coolest moment at Kentucky, I always tell people, is we actually played at Assembly, and I would lead out our team during warm-ups because we lost smart 18 to 20-year-olds. We would go shortest to tallest. Not even kidding.
And you in the front?
Shockingly, yeah. I forgot my stilts. So leading out Kentucky inside Assembly, the boos were so freaking loud. Literally had goosebumps. It was the coolest thing that's ever happened. So that place is amazing. But there has to be someone that comes in and rebuilds the importance of how nostalgic it is to be a part of an amazing IU team, and they have not had that since Bob Knight.
I think they need a guy that, obviously, they need a guy who understands the history of Indiana University. I think those, as much as Hoosier fans may not hear, as much as Hoosier fans don't want to hear it, I think those banners are almost hurting them right now because it's giving them unrealistic expectations of what they need to see from the team.
You're not a national brand.
Right now, you're not. Now, can you get there? Absolutely, this program can. They've got the money, they've got the facilities and resources to be there. But right now, it's almost as if the expectations are almost holding this program back in a sense, because I think those expectations also make the coaching staff think, well, we need to go out and get the top tier talent and get away. Like, they reluctantly recruit the state of Indiana, I think. It almost feels like it.
Yeah, so why I think the problem with IU, I think we were all kind of saying, they just don't have identity. They don't know what, they...
I don't even know if they run sets offensively.
Like, okay, are we going to recruit the small town kids? No. Okay, are we going to go for the big fish? But you still don't get, top guys.
They are
in this... they get guys like Khalil Ware, who was a 5-star, kind of flopped at Oregon.
Really good player.
Yeah, they got Mbako. By the way, you mentioned this too. The roster construction of this team's ridiculous. Mbako, Ware, and Renew with no point guard.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah. That happened yesterday, by the way, in that game.
That's not going to work.
Penn State started pressing them yesterday, and they did not have a ball handler anywhere on the floor.
By the way, I want to go back to that Penn State team. They were without their leading scorer, Kanye Clary, and still won by double digits. He did not play, and they still crushed them.
Sheesh.
So what I come back to on IU is they need to recruit the state of Indiana, and they're kind of doing so right now. They're going after that Greenfield Central kid, Braylon Mullins, who's really good. They want Trent Sisley out of Heritage Hills. So they're trying to go after these guys, but again, it doesn't feel like that they really truly are invested in the state of Indiana. And I think not just the high school kids, but the coaches of these schools, they see right through that. And I think as being so involved with how recruiting went down in high school from the teams that I covered in Mississippi, you have to make relationships and get in good with the coaches. That goes a long way.
I was going to say the biggest positive thing that the late Bob Knight did is every coach in the state of Indiana respected him to the point where they would be honored if Bob Knight walked in there. Coach Woodson should have that for his what his background at IU is, being on
from
those
Indiana.
Teams. Yeah, from Indiana, being on those teams.
Yeah,
an Indianapolis boy, and he does not have the same stigma. And I guess that's not fair to say it's on him, but it is. He doesn't have that presence.
Does he want to coach college basketball? It almost seems like he's there to collect a check.
It's almost like he didn't understand the work that needed to be put
Maybe
in
that's
to
what
rebuild
it is.
this program.
It's
because I mean, in the NBA, just like the NFL, they talk about all these college football coaches leaving for the NFL. That Boston College's head coach went to be a coordinator with NIL and the transfer portal. It's a 365. I mean, that's why Brad Stevens will probably never come back to college.
No.
Is he gets a summer vacation now?
Well, I feel like every time that there's a new coaching search for IU, it's Brad Stevens is coming home. And it's probably. I'm not going to say never. We have
sources to tell you Brad Stevens is never coming back, so IU fans get off that train.
Okay, I can't say it's never going to happen because never say never with certain things, but I would agree with you. Yeah, so there's so many problems right now with IU basketball, and it's multifaceted. There's so many layers to it.
See, it's not just recruiting; it's they don't know how to construct a roster. It's just little stuff. And by the way, Woodson's 26-25 in the Big Ten in his third season, so he's been okay there. I'll say,
but
There's a guy
we
down
just
south
crapped on that conference for how bad it is now.
And
I'll say go get Dusty May. He's from Indiana, or he's an IU ball boy.
I mean, and
that's the hire.
Honestly, if they can go and get Dusty May, and he can find a way to bring some of the guys that he's had at Florida Atlantic as well, because that's kind of been the thing now with college basketball is go and get the coach that you want and have him bring the guys that you had with you at that school. Dusty May fits that perfectly. But I will say this, I mean, Josh Schertz at Indiana State, that would be a guy I would look to as well, because that Indiana State is the second best team in the state of Indiana right now, and it's not even close.
I used the fourth best team in the state right now. With Butler being better than them.
Butler's Butler's definitely better than IU. Yes,
better than EP1 though. There you go.
The other thing, so if IU does move off past Woodson, we'll address this more in the summer. What they need is, for anyone that watched the UConn game yesterday against St. John's, anti-UConn guy, I'm sure we'll dive into that deep. But watching Hurley coach, and I'm not a big Hurley guy either, but there's a timeout where he's firing them. He's talking about, we're getting the road whistle. Now they're getting offensive boards. They're doing this wrong. But the way that he motivates his teams during timeouts, which obviously I'm sure we know he does in practices, pregame, postgame, IU has not had that in someone since maybe Mike Davis is motivational. He wasn't great at X's and O's.
Yeah.
Crean was kind of a goofball in a sense.
He's motivational, but in a very weird way.
Yeah.
I still say Crean was a good coach. It just kind of didn't end
He did his job. He got them out of the cellar. That was a hard job and a no-win situation for him.
And then Archie, obviously, that was bad from the start.
I thought that was a home run hire.
I thought it was too. I thought it was
when
a good
they hired
hire.
him, I was like, they did it.
I thought it was
boy,
too.
was I wrong.
So we'll see what direction IU goes in going forward. But it's been tough.
Ended on this is Woodson coaching. Is he the coach next year?
I say yes.
If they can get a decision, because I don't know who they want to go and get, because maybe that would be more helpful to know exactly. But Dusty May would be perfect. I mean, that would literally be the guy that I think would honestly fit that program and that team perfectly.
Let me change my 100% absolute yes, he will be. I think what's going to happen, we'll see how the season plays out. I could see it more being Woodson and the IU brass come together and they decide together this wasn't a good fit. But I don't think they want to say we fired Mike Woodson, but Woodson may agree, okay, I'm in over my head. Let's part ways and maybe just
he's
be
an
part
old
of.
man, too.
Yes,
It's like he's...
Again, I don't know if he wants to be coaching college. There was some game they lost a couple weeks ago, and there was like a picture that got tweeted out of them smoking cigars and drinking wine in like a smoke room or something that got on social media, and everyone was like, what are you doing after a game doing that and taking pictures of it? It was really awkward and weird. I can't remember where that photo was or how it got put out there, but
I can assure you no photos are taken of Bill Self in Kansas's post-game celebrations. They get after it.
Mm-hmm.
We have sources on that. We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about that later.
And that's a compliment to Bill Self.
Oh, yeah.
So that's that on IU. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on.
Who would be
Maybe
the
they can
funniest
figure it
person?
out.
By the way, I think he'll be back next year, but probably for one more year. Who do you think's the funniest person they would hire? I think Archie's the obvious one.
Dane Fife. If they somehow brought Dane Fife back, I think that would be hilarious. Isn't Keith Smart still assistant coaching somewhere in the NBA?
He is. Keith Smart
Maybe
is
they bring
somewhere.
Keith Smart in?
They just do the NBA thing again?
But I feel like IU is a lot like Michigan, where they can't hire someone that doesn't have a connection to their past. Like they are...
Dan Dockage.
It's like to the death of them, they are connected to what they've done in their past, and they have to pick someone from that.
Unrealistic, but Nick, Dan Dockage would be the highest.
That's what
Dockage would be pretty.
I'm gonna start campaigning for this. We get bring him back home.
Dockage to IU. Dockage to IU. Start the hashtag.
Speaking of, did you guys see my buddy Dan Dockage is back on the radio?
I did see that and hear that. Yes,
he's back on AM radio. Congrats, Dan. I'm
sure he's listening.
Yeah, I saw that his the company that hired him out of 30 markets in Indiana, they're 29th out of 30th. So enjoy that scratchy AM radio.
In honor of Dockage being back, I'm gonna do a political rant once a week, boys. So get ready.
Oh boy, I really hope not.
Let's move on.
Last thing on Dockage, by the way, I like his interviews that he does because he speaks from a coach's standpoint. But man, I do not like his. I hate his hot takes. They are so bad. By the way, that is our hot take horn. If you hear any of us have a hot take at any point during the show, I'm going to press that button. So just make sure you get ready for having that going forward. That is also a shout out to my wife, Kelly, who suggested we put that in the pod, and we are putting it into action.
I'm still single, Kelly. Just FYI.
Yes. Good to know. All right. Let's move on. Divine Providence. We're going to touch on this real quick, but if you haven't seen it yet, this kind of got around on social media where there was this guy on social media. His name's Blue Demon Degenerate on Twitter, which is a great name. Big DePaul fan. But he's been doing kind of monthly kind of quasi documentaries on Big East teams of the past and Big East films, and he did one on the Providence Friars. And Providence, and this is something I didn't know until I actually did some research on it, Providence has an incredible basketball history, like Providence College. Dave Gavitt, who's one of the fathers of college basketball of it is now, was a coach there, took him to a Final Four. Rick Pitino took him to a Final Four in 1987 before he went to the Knicks. Some legends that you've probably heard of before that played at Providence: Lenny Wilkins, Otis Thorpe, Dickie Simpkins, played for the Bulls, obviously Billy Donovan. Chris Dunn was a lottery pick. Ernie D. Gregorio was probably their best player. He was the Rookie of the Year in the NBA in 1974. But in this documentary, and
Rick Barnes coached there too.
Rick Barnes coached there for a time. Yeah.
So I saw our pre-show notes, and I was pretty upset with you that you left off a name off that Providence list. For those that don't know,
obviously not Bryce Hopkins.
In 1997, they lost in overtime to eventual national champion Arizona. Austin Crozier was on that team. They were a 10 seed. They beat second seed Duke. But the stud of that team, who averaged 10 points a game, was God Shamgod.
Oh, God Shamgod! What a name!
Shout out.
Oh, I forgot God Shamgod, man.
By the way, you saying Providence up saying Duke, we need to do an episode like our favorite like random college March Madness memories.
See,
like upsets and
anytime
stuff like that.
someone says, we're going to do that at some point. Anytime that someone says God Shamgod, I think of Ruben Boomshay played at Georgetown. One of my favorites. But on Providence, doubling back to that. In the documentary, quasi-documentary, again, this amateur film, they basically, it chronicled the arrival and exit of Ed Cooley, who's now at Georgetown. And if you aren't intertwined into Big East basketball, the hatred for Georgetown in the Big East is extraordinary. And it's not something I really ever understood, that vitriol that people have for the Hoyas of the John Thompson era. So people in Providence hate Georgetown. And Ed Cooley grew up in Providence, played in the area, played junior college there, and for 11 years talked about how much he enjoyed the family and the fellowship of being at Providence. And after 11 years decided that he wanted to go to Georgetown and coach the Hoyas. And this entire documentary was basically on, how he helped rebuild the program and left Georgetown. And then there was like a 5-minute stretch of that documentary where the filmmaker talks about Ed Cooley and potentially the reason why he left Providence was because he was having an affair and was also hooking up with students. So this then came back to the Field of 68. Field of 68 is a podcast. They do a really good job. Jeff Goodman, John Fanta. John Fanta was actually on the documentary talking and being interviewed about Providence because he's got a connection there. And Jeff Goodman who's on the Field of 68. He DMs the guy on Twitter who made the film and basically says, "I hope you get a good lawyer. You're going to look good in orange."
Big Syracuse guy.
Which, incredible comment for Jeff Goodman to say.
Insane.
And ever since then, anytime Jeff Goodman posts something on social media, it's, "Man, Jeff, what do you think? Would I look good in orange?" But what an asinine thing to say to someone over DMs.
Yeah.
Even if you don't know the person, what are you doing? But obviously, I would assume that Jeff Goodman and the Field of 68 have a pretty close connection to Ed Cooley, and they're trying to basically pour cold water on the entire situation with what's going on with Providence. All I can tell you is try to find the documentary on YouTube. It's still bouncing around there. Basically Providence and Ed Cooley keep trying to take it down from what I've seen and heard. But it's a very thorough documentary. I downloaded it from YouTube to have it. If you want it, by the way, I will personally send it to you over email. Wow. If you message, so I'll give you our email address. It's D1 and Done pod @gmail.com. That is D1ANDDONNEPOD @gmail.com. The first 5 people that email us, I will send you the documentary if you want it.
And if you can get for $5, just Venmo Nick-Mills-17. You can get that immediately.
So I just wanted to mention the whole Providence thing because I thought it was an interesting talking point over social media. I know that's getting really deep into the weeds of college hoops, but I wanted to bring it up because I listen to the Field of 68 regularly. I think they do a really good job. But with how much Jeff Goodman and Rob Doster and all those guys went in on this one amateur filmmaker that did a great job on it, just felt really odd and awkward.
Well, thank you for bringing it up because I'm sure like a lot of people who are like me, like I was seeing the tweets, but I did not know exactly what went down.
Try to put a little context to it.
Yeah.
So if you love college basketball, like the Divine Providence film is actually legitimately great. Maybe I'll send it to both of you guys for you to watch because I downloaded a copy of it so I can transfer it to you so you can have it. Again, you find that at D1, the letter D, the number 1, and donepod@gmail.com. First 5 people that inquire and email us, I'll send it out to.
And real quick on Ed Cooley, that's been a rumor for a long time about the affair. Did you know what Providence chanted at him?
No, what did they say?
I don't know if I can say like something about like effing your mistress.
Oh,
something
yeah,
like that.
okay.
Like, they were ruthless to him. And
well, that's the Rhode Island in those people. Like the Northeast, like they are ruthless. They do not care. They come after you. But yeah, the vitriol that was in that building when Georgetown came and played at Providence about a week and a half ago was pretty extraordinary.
And Georgetown's still really bad.
Georgetown's still terrible.
It's going to be quite the cleanup for.
You talk about
Ed
a
Cooley.
program building that program up. Goodness, that's a long way to go for Georgetown.
Nice job, Pat Ewing.
So I try to do my best to dismiss personal life from your actual job. That goes back to like the Tiger Woods days. I remember people would be like, "Oh, look what your boy did." It's like, okay, that's fine. He's still a great golfer. So the affair
Looking back on that, people act like he had committed a crime.
I know.
Like it's not good, but like I don't know. They got blown. We'll continue though.
Yeah. Well,
I have a theory about that,
if
but
that's true, that's unfortunate. But it's not our marriage. We don't know what's going on there. But I can understand why that can cause external issues, especially when you're doing it in house. Look at Ime Udoka, now the Rockets coach with the Celtics. I mean, he's a heck of a coach and got ran out because of the same thing.
We still don't know what came from that, right? I think they've never reported what happened, right?
He apparently was sleeping with someone inside.
Wasn't with the actual Boston organization?
Yeah, someone in the organization.
I just don't know if we ever knew 100% sure.
Yeah, so him and I believe they're just boyfriend and girlfriend technically. They are estranged. This is from reports I've actually heard from Houston sources, so I don't know the whole thing.
Wow.
So that's difficult. The biggest thing I get out of it is Jeff Goodman gets a lot of crap. He's a quirky guy, I understand it. To me, he presents information, and that's what I follow him for.
Sure.
You got to be bigger than that. You can't go back at that guy thinking it's not going to get posted. There's plenty of times that someone has, even today I'll read Twitter, and it was back to the Kentucky game, people saying certain things, and I just want to just call someone an idiot and not as nice of a word. And I'm like, you know what? It's not big enough. It's not that important, whatever. If people want to be idiots, then let them be. Like, I understand he's trying to stand up for his guy, but Goodman's got to be bigger than that. It's a lose-lose situation for him. With that said, now I'm going to be the a-hole and said I did some research today. Apparently, Ed Cooley cheated on his SATs and had to take them like 4 times in high school.
What?
Hey! This is John Calipari. We can't be talking about SATs on here.
Correct.
I did not know that.
Yes. Deep research by me over here.
Man.
But let's be fair. He was 18 at the time.
Right. We all make mistakes when we're 18.
Of course, like cheating on your SATs.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of anything bad that I did when I was 18.
I've never done anything bad.
Anything I'm willing to admit. It's statute limit. See, the statute of limitations on us, we're fine. But you're like 6 years removed from that. Well, more like 3.
I think 6. That's enough, right? Statute of limitations,
sure.
I think.
It's usually like 15. But.
Okay, well, you're not a lawyer, so.
My sister is, though.
Well, she's not here.
All right, we'll have to call her up.
What, so you know a lawyer means you know the law?
I sure do.
My dad works at a hospital, but I can't operate on anyone.
Am I being detained?
No. By the way, real quick.
I just remember to say that every time.
Real quick about the SAT, that's my favorite fantasy football punishment. When guys have to take the SAT,
it's so good.
It's so simple. It's so hilarious.
It's better than the Waffle House.
It is.
Eat a waffle, lose an hour for being 24 hours. That's so much better.
Like 7 a.m. on Saturday and take a test with a bunch of high schoolers. It's so effing funny. So
That's just
shout out Ed Cooley.
Just be careful what you're putting on social media. It's always been
that was my whole point.
But yeah, like I know that as I worked in the sports journalism media field for a long time, you do start thinking of yourself as bigger than what you really are, I think, in certain instances. And you think you're there. I know there are certain journalists who think they're bulletproof and can say and do whatever they want. We're all replaceable.
AI is coming.
Let's be honest. We can all be replaced with someone else. That's just how it is.
You think Mahomes could be replaced?
Yeah.
Okay.
So is Chad Henne still there?
Anything retired. Hennessy. We have Blaine Gabbert.
Darn. Oh, Blaine.
The Blaine train.
Did you say we have Blaine Gabbert? Are you a Chiefs fan now?
No, just as a society.
Oh, we as a society.
So
have
Nick
Blaine
did get on the
Gabbert.
Chiefs bandwagon last week, and I can't attest to that.
Oh, man.
Well, I bet on them. Then Nate was giving me almost said the
Crap.
crap for it.
Yeah.
So I was like, screw it. I'm going all in.
Chief
Nick.
By the way, I'm
a chiefaholic.
Going forward, we want to acknowledge, we don't want to be explicit in this pod. We want to be kind and considerate with our language to everyone because we want everyone to be able to listen.
So we won't say Dick Vitale. Can't say that.
Well, you can say it. You can say Richard Richard Vitale.
Okay,
if
making
you
sure.
want to.
Making
Yeah.
sure. Okay,
you can
just
say
to
all
make
those
sure.
things.
Okay.
All right, let's switch gears really quickly before we say anything else that's dumb.
Dick Vitale.
Let's move on to this part of the show where we're going to shout out some mid-major teams that we love. And if there was ever a year for college basketball to shout out some of the lower level teams, it's going to be this year. There's so many great teams across the lower conferences in college hoops that are so much fun to watch. Heck, we watched Loyola Chicago Davidson today, and it was a good game. And we all, as much as we love college basketball, that's why we love getting into the weeds on this kind of stuff. So,
Absolutely.
Nick, I want you to talk about your mid-major team that you want to shout out that's making waves. I know you got a lot of them that you want to go
I have a
through
lot.
here.
By the way, we do love mid-majors. I don't think Dusty does because he just dipped on us. So maybe he hates the mid-majors. We don't, though, Robbie.
Are we the pod for mid-majors?
I think so.
Maybe that could be our
Which is-
tagline
Which
going
is
forward.
fitting because we're kind of mid ourselves.
Oh, that fits perfectly.
I know, right?
Yeah, wow.
But
okay, anyway.
Robbie, since
Nick.
the first show, and maybe not everyone here is like, in the weeds as college basketball as we are.
Yeah.
So I just want to shout out the Mountain West. That's my mid-major.
So good this year.
Just so if people don't know, the Mountain West is my favorite conference, and it is actually one of the best conferences in basketball this year, okay? As of here today, we have 5 teams currently in the tournament, okay? Let me read them off for you real quick.
Again, I like that you're saying we. We're putting down some lines
The
here.
Royal We. I like it. So Utah State, 6th seed. Utah State's the best team in the conference. They're awesome.
Even though they lost to San Diego State yesterday.
lost to San Diego State
San Diego
yesterday.
State played great in that game.
Speaking of which, San Diego State's also a 6th seed right now.
Oh, how about that?
Not much to say about them.
Reigning national runners-up as well. You should
Absolutely.
mention.
They're just all reliable. They've been,
Jaden Ledee is
honestly,
so good.
other than Gonzaga, maybe the best mid-major program in the last
15
10,
years.
15 years?
Something like that.
I would say
I mean,
so.
Kawhi
yeah.
was there, 2011, 12?
Yeah, he's 2011 draft guy of the Pacers, but never played for the Pacers. But
Oh, whoops.
yeah.
Anyway,
Moving on.
Continue on.
Colorado State's a 7th seed. They have my favorite player in the conference, Isaiah Stevens.
He's good.
Dog.
He's really good.
They played Creighton this year and being by like 107 points.
Yeah.
New Mexico.
Larry Eustace doesn't coach Colorado State anymore, does he?
How
No, he doesn't. I was making a joke.
Okay,
Continue.
but it's like there's no way he does. No. New Mexico's the 8th seed right now. They may have one of the best home court
Lobos.
advantages, even though they just lost at home to Boise State. But they are
really?
lost on
Wow.
Wednesday, so they're
Okay.
an 8th seed right now. They have names you know: Richard Patino's son, Jamal Mashbird's kids on the team.
Jamal Mashburn Jr. is good. He's a good basketball player.
Eddie House kids
Eddie-
is on the
yeah,
team.
Eddie House's kids there?
Yeah,
No
they
way.
have names on New
For
Mexico.
those, quick segue, one of the greatest polls in the history of definitely basketball. Sports Illustrated, correct, Nick, if you recall that? Mm-hmm. Sports Illustrated used to put out a weekly poll, also RIP Sports Illustrated. I'm sure we can dive into that at some episode.
Oh gosh.
They, sorry, they polled, it was like 300 NBA players in one year. And the question was, who's the worst ball handler in the NBA? I'm going to get these names wrong, but 4 of the top 5 were basically Shaq, Yao Ming, and 2 other prominent big men. And just in the middle at 4th was guard Eddie House. Shout out Mike Pruden for that.
We might have to tweet that out,
Eddie
picture that
House.
out. It's so great.
I hope Mike listens to the show, by the way. Mike is someone I value his opinion a lot. He does a great job
100%.
at IU, yeah. So, but yeah, and
then one more. Boise State's currently in the tournament right now. Is at 10 seed.
Boise State's a good team.
They just won in New Mexico. They're tied for first in the Mountain West. By the way, sneaky good sports program.
And
Good
if you want a reason
Yes.
to watch Mountain West as Nick continues the knowledge, 2 Saturdays ago, so 8 days ago, Wyoming in that conference was down 11 with 58 seconds left and came back and won in overtime. At home.
Really?
Yep, and it was against one of those teams. Do you Boise maybe?
I was gonna make that point. A lot of these top teams have lost on the road. Like they've lost to UNLV, Wyoming.
Yes.
Nevada's a team you haven't mentioned. Nevada's
They
really
are
good this
currently
year.
in the first 4 out right now for you Hoosier fans. Steve Allfirst, the coach out there.
I was about to drop that. Guess who's the head coach of Nevada
So
now? Yeah.
it is just a fun conference, and like Dusty alluded to, like these teams have lost to other teams in the conference too. So it's just awesome.
I'm sure we all know this, but this is a great segment because I'm learning along with all of you, and I know all the listeners are. If you're trying to find like a team that you want to latch onto come tournament time, this is a perfect time to listen in on this mid-major.
And another thing, so I actually myself am not a big gambler. My two co-hosts are. So you
Don't gamble.
hold on.
It's the worst.
Well, first off, please bet responsibly.
Yes.
First off. Second off, I'm not.
We'll get to that. Oh, okay.
I
do not gamble.
I want my wife to know
don't.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not.
Sorry.
I've
Let me
had
get what I
the
was getting
same
at.
$20 in my account for 2 months.
That's why I can't take girls on
Except
dates.
for
I
his
keep
money
blowing
line.
all my money
Yeah,
on
except for his money
Colorado
line
State
was
plus
Wisconsin
7.5.
we're not talking about that though.
But for those that like to, watch recreationally like I do, the Mountain West coverage, if you do want to grab on that conference or grab onto a team, or like I said, place bets or parlays at night, CBS Sports Network covers them almost every single night during the week. So if you want at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m.
Yeah, there's always a
And
Mountain
CBS
West
Sports
game,
Network
man.
is where to find most of those
And
games.
if they're not for any reason, get this. Jake Mills, our other brother, discovered this. There's a Mountain West Conference app.
Yes. Oh, app.
No,
Okay.
no sign in, no nothing.
Really?
You just download the app. So if you're streaming services, there's just a Mountain West
We
Conference
may have
app.
to. I may have to pick a Mountain West team to support this year.
Do we all pick a team?
So, well, okay, but before that, I want to mention. So, since the turn of the millennium, before last year's tournament, I believe that the Mountain West was 1-20 in the NCAA tournament.
That's what I was going to get to as well.
Yes. Last year was the first year that there was actually a Mountain West team that made a run. So that's why San Diego State making the final national championship game was absolutely extraordinary that they did that. Because that conference, while it has been really good, really, really good in the past.
No, their tournament struggles have to be brought up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's like you said, it's
I
not
think it was
just bad.
I think it was 1-20 in the last.
Well, yeah, I mean,
10
we
years.
can't make the Big Ten joke, not even trying to be funny if we're not
Right.
going to bring up that.
Yeah.
Well, especially because I remember, so 22. They had 6 teams make the tournament. 5 of them lost in the first round.
So BYU was the one team that I was going to shout out because that's the Jimmer Fredette team. So it was after that year, that's when the Mountain West kind of always got teams in but could never really win. Like Utah State had always been there. Colorado State had a really good team with David Roddy 2 years ago that lost to Michigan in the first round. That was a great Colorado State team. So, the Mountain West is a really good conference.
And did you guys know, just a fun fact, when UNLV made their runs back in the early 90s, they were not a part of the Mountain West. So you can even date it back.
Were they an independent team?
Big West.
They were a Big West team.
Shout out to
Man,
Big West.
Big West. Jeez,
Yeah,
what a
just
conference.
Shout the Mountain West is
Should
one of the best
mention,
conferences.
I want to give you a fun stat for San Diego State. They are 16-0 in their last 16 games after a loss.
Sheesh.
It's like a Belichick number.
Can you believe that? And that's not counting that back. So there was a back-to-back game 2 years ago they lost in Atlantis. If you take that out, because again it's a back-to-back game, no one plays back-to-backs
Asterisk,
anymore.
huh?
So there's a bit of an asterisk. Now 9-0 in their last 9 then, but 16-0 of non-back-to-backs over the last 3 years, and they've won 17 straight home games.
And by the way, you mentioned the run. They had to beat Alabama last year on the way to run
Yeah.
and Brandon Miller. So I mean, it was a legitimate run. Be a Creighton team that was
Crazy.
highly ranked going to the season.
Yeah,
Elite 8.
yeah. I'm with you on the Mountain West. I like them a lot. They got a lot of really good teams. Yeah,
Please don't go 1-5 in the tournament again, please.
So maybe we should give like a weekly Mountain West update then, I guess.
I think we should all
It's
pick
a
a
really,
team.
it's a proper. I mean, I'm picking Colorado State because I
Damn it.
love Isaiah Stevens. That's my guy.
We should be a Colorado State
love
pod.
Colorado State.
We should be a Colorado State.
They are
pod.
so much fun to watch. Dusty, your mid-major team that you want to shout out this week.
I have one team and one conference. So for those who don't know, I am huge on the small conferences. That's why I created those binders back in the day. For those who don't follow college basketball closely or are still learning, those that want to help, put together their March Madness bracket. Part of the reason I love the small conferences is, for those who don't know, about 95% of the teams in Division I are already in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Similar to high school, you play your sectional or some state, your district, whatever you call it. About 95% of teams make their conference tournament. If you win your conference tournament, you automatically make the NCAA tournament. So you could be.
I love the reasoning behind this, by the way. Keep going.
Yeah. So
Isn't that beautiful though? Like Central Connecticut's taken to win 10 games in a row in March, and like you're national champs.
Yes.
no
Yeah.
questions asked.
Yeah. You could walk in at 3-13 and be Texas Southern, but you made the SWAC tournament as the 9th seed. If you go win your next 10 games, you're the national champion. So that's why I love the small conferences. My conference. So going forward, as we go through multiple years, I would like to start showing a different conference each week, starting in November, and just kind of profile them.
I love that.
Love that
Obviously-
idea.
Obviously, we're late in the year this year. So the team right now is Grand Canyon University.
Oh, the Lopes.
When I was thinking about being a teacher and changing my career about 5 years ago, I almost took online courses there.
Really?
Yeah,
nice.
Teacher?
Yeah.
not know that.
Robby inspired me more than just solo singing at church.
I don't know. Every teacher I know is kind of weird.
Hold on. Why keep learning stuff that you'd never tell me? You actually wanted to be a teacher, and it's because I got into
Yeah, I
it?
still get emails from Grand Canyon. So for those who don't know,
we need we need a therapist on the pod that's like with us. That's like telling
a little therapist couch action.
Yeah, you're giving me some. Yeah. Anyway, continue. So Grand Canyon.
Grand Canyon, I believe they're 19-2 this year. 20-2.
Let me confirm.
There's something
that for
too.
you.
I saw the bottom line.
I didn't write that number down, but for those who don't know,
21-2.
21-2. Their head coach is Bryce Drew. For those who don't remember, Bryce Drew hit the game-winning shot for Valparaiso to beat
Ole Miss
in the 96. Correct. I was driving home from, or not driving, I was in the backseat of my dad was driving for basketball practice that day at Fort Sill Elementary School. So Bryce Drew, who bounced around, actually played for the Rockets at one point as well.
He did. Yes, I remember
NBA
that.
career, probably a couple other teams. He is at Grand Canyon University. Their home games, they are electric.
I've seen those. Those are incredible.
If you guys want another team to look for, go look at the home odds when Grand Canyon's playing at home.
I think I don't know who heavily invested in their program, but like they've got like
a name.
Was the Suns player the Dan Marley?
Was it Marley?
He has some connection. To
I think so. Yeah.
Thunder Dan.
But like they stream all of their games on like they have their own like broadcasting channel, kind of like how BYU has BYU TV, I believe. I think it's the same thing with Grand Canyon, if I'm not mistaken.
Network.
Yeah, something like that.
They probably have like side screen. You can take your lecture on the screen to the right as the game's going on the left.
Something like that. But anyway, yeah, if you want to, like Grand Canyon has like, they have like a crazy student section every single game. I would love for them to win the WAC again because they made the tournament last year.
Real quick, Dan Marley was a coach at Grand Canyon from 2013
coach at Grand Canyon then. That's the connection. Okay. So I love that.
He filed a lawsuit against Grand Canyon over the handling of his firing and pending salaries.
Okay,
I'm guessing he's not the donor that you're speaking of.
Yeah,
That's not the donor then.
So my conference of the week, though, is one that doesn't allow most teams to make their conference tournament.
That's why I thought you were going for that on that argument. Yeah, because I know where you're going here.
So our nerds out in the Ivy League only allow 4 of their schools to make the tournament, so the top 4 seeds all make it.
So you're going from talking about you want to be a teacher, now you're bringing up the Ivy League. You're just a nerd over
scholar.
Got to cover all of it.
I did not cheat on my SATs. And I got a 32 on my ACT and didn't make it into Florida. No comment for
Again,
that.
I did not know that either.
Yep.
And I thought me getting a 27 on the ACT was impressive. You got a 32? Jeez.
You should go to Kentucky. You only need like a 6 to get into Kentucky. I guess you did go.
So you just got to write your name on a sheet of paper and then you get into Kentucky?
And then I purposely failed my pre-course to college algebra so I could get an easy A.
I did that.
Easy A is a sneaky good movie.
So correct.
Good shout there, Emma Stone.
So the Ivy League is a 3-team race right now, for those who don't know.
Yep.
So it's between Cornell.
Well,
I was giving Yale's one.
You did a big raid.
Cornell, who has not been to a Sweet 16 since that team in 2010.
And made this, yeah. Mm-hmm.
They had my ex-Kentucky teammate Mark Curry on the team. They lost to Kentucky and John Wall.
Yeah,
Marcus
Kentucky
Cousins.
worked him in that game.
They
I remember,
did.
Yeah.
Yale, Cornell and Yale are both 6-0. They both beaten Princeton, who's 4-2.
Which surprises me because Princeton was really good.
Princeton was
People don't remember made the Sweet 16 last year.
Sweet 16 team as a 15 seed, yeah.
So Princeton was 15-1 with one loss to St. Joseph's, but then they lost at Cornell and at Yale by 15 and 14 respectively.
Oh, jeez.
Cornell and Yale both have better schedules and much tougher losses. Cornell lost to George Mason, Syracuse, Baylor. Yale has lost to Gonzaga, a couple smaller ones, Kansas and Rhode Island. And I see that Princeton does play both of them at home. February 17th against Yale on ESPN2, and then March 2nd it's Cornell as well. So 3-team race. The name that most people know is Xavier Lee, plays for Princeton. He's the 3rd leading scorer in the league at 17.8 a game.
Yep.
Cornell is I'm spacing on their stud's name.
Andy Bernard.
Yes, good. Yes.
Yes.
We'll just go with the Andy's Cornell team. So I'm going to lean on. I think Princeton actually will get together. 2 tough road losses.
I think
see what
so
happens
too,
at
yeah.
home. So Princeton's my team to beat in the Ivy League. But I have a player to watch for a team. There's a horrible team that currently has the 4 seed. It is Brown.
Shout out.
The Bears.
They have the conference's leading scorer in Keno Lilly Jr., who happens to be a junior. He was Ivy League freshman or newcomer of the year. His freshman year is a stud. And I'm waiting for Brown to sneak in as that 4 seed. Like I said, currently 2-4 in the conference. Upset someone, and then we have a showdown in New York. They played at Columbia's gym in New York. Robbie, you said that you've been to that.
I've been to Columbia. I've shot baskets in that gym after covering. I was covering the NIT when Mississippi State was there in New York, and they practiced at Columbia's gym.
Oh yeah.
So that was pretty cool. Yeah, it's a solid gym.
Which that's the other thing that you guys will like too. If you get bored and you go watch some of these small conference gymnasiums, I was watching Bethune-Cookman play home game last week.
Oh, that's like a high school gym.
And they literally had they had the stage with the curtains on the baseline, and cheerleaders. There's no space, so they were actually standing half on the stage, half on the baseline. So going forward, I will start giving you guys, because most of the small conferences, they only have 4 weeks left of their regular season. So we'll start following these really close conference races over the next 4
Love
weeks.
that. I'm pulling for Harvard to be that fourth team, unfortunately. So I'm going to be going against you, because Harvard has a freshman guard by the name of Malik Mack, who is a baller. He went off against IU in a neutral site game at Gamage Fieldhouse back in November, or I think it was beginning of December. And ever since I watched him play, I was like, man, I like Harvard, and I like that Malik Mack kid. So he's a freshman averaging 19 a game right now. But Harvard kind of going through some rough seas right now, so they're 2-4 in the league.
I'm glad you brought up the Ivy League, because they've had tournament success. You mentioned Cornell, 2016, Princeton. Yale made the round 32 in 2016.
When they beat Baylor,
That's when Torian Prince had the all-time presser afterward.
When I go up and I got the rebound, you put your hands on the ball.
And you come down with it. That's a rebound. And they got more of those than we did. And that's how we lost.
Such a good line. So, I love the fact for the Ivy League, because I saw when you were making that argument, I love the fact that you have to earn your way into that conference tournament and finish in the top 4.
I don't.
You don't like it? You want everyone to be involved?
I want everyone in. That's my whole spiel with the small conferences. I want a team to go.
I agree with you. Every other conference, yes. The Ivy League, they're all going to be CEOs and running the world soon. So I want them to get some pain and misery in their life.
So please sponsor our podcast.
Please sponsor our podcast, Ivy League CEOs. Who's still the head coach? Do you guys know who the head coach at Harvard is right now?
Is it still Tommy Amaker?
Still Tommy Amaker.
He's been there.
He's been there
years,
for
right?
No, like 20 years. Yeah. He's been there a long time.
The Yale coach has been there forever too.
Yeah. What's his name?
They have it's like a professor. They're tenured.
I love their head coach, because he did a couple.
He's an African American man.
Yeah, he did a couple pregame speeches before their March Madness games.
I got it.
I loved it.
James Jones.
That's who it is. Yeah. They had a guy that actually got picked in the second round of the tournament, or second round of the draft a few years ago. Mie Oni, I think his name was. Well, Yale, really good team. Let me shout out my mid-major team. And even though the American Athletic Conference is considered a mid-major conference, they're one of the top 3 conferences in the country right now. But I want to give a shout out to the team that's currently on top of the American. That is the Charlotte 49ers. Charlotte, a team that... Why are you booing Charlotte?
The Owls,
FAU. Yeah, they're ahead of.
For people who don't know, I have a weird affinity for FAU. Starting when I was young, so I will be an Owls fan on the pod as well. Just forewarning.
We'll continue that going. So Charlotte has won. Charlotte's won 8 straight. They had their first sellout at their arena, Halton Arena, in 11 years on Saturday with their win. They lead the American Conference currently, 96 in the net, 101 in KenPom. So they're kind of hovering around that, but they still probably need to get a couple big wins. Their best player, who I love the most, is Igor Milicic. He transferred in from Virginia. He averages 13 and 8. He's 6'10" and shoots 37% from 3.
Hell yes.
So love me some Charlotte. And honestly, I love the American as a whole. My second favorite team in the American is probably Andy Kennedy's UAB Blazers, because I will forever be a fan of Andy Kennedy.
Get blazed.
I love UAB. I hope they make a run. But that conference,
North Texas has been good for a while.
North Texas has been good. They beat some team in the tournament a couple years back that I don't remember very clearly. But can you believe that the team in last in the American is Wichita State right now? They're 1-8 in the conference.
Me and Krav had a discussion about a couple weeks ago. No program has fallen to hell more than
Final Four team from 10 years ago, I think?
So 2013. And then they're I don't know the number 1 overall seed, but they're undefeated 1 seed in 2014 with NBA players on the team.
Crazy how far they've fallen so quickly.
Yeah, and there's just no sign of life at all.
No, Greg Marshall, what happened?
I was going to say, unfortunately, that's what bad leadership can lead to.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So,
also, did you guys know why Charlotte is the 49ers? It's not the same as the NFL team.
I don't.
I'm trying to think. It was founded in 1749.
Close enough. They're going to be shut down. They were the Charlotte Center for the University of North Carolina. And they're going to be shut down by the state, but Bonnie Cone saved the school in 1949.
Hey.
Shout out Bonnie.
And that's why they're called the 49ers?
Yes.
That's awesome.
But you know what? I know we're producing this pod, but I love this pod already, and I know, and we're part okay, it's still early, but anyway,
I agree. But by the way, is Charlotte the best team in Charlotte for basketball? They could beat the Hornets, right?
Oh yeah,
I think so. Okay,
LaMelo's overrated.
Please win tonight, Pacers. They play them tonight.
Oh, please win tonight. Yeah, by the time you're listening to this, hopefully the Pacers have won. All right. We're going to do that every single week. Shout out a team and even a conference going forward as we look to the head to March. Maybe give you a team to watch out for. I remember a couple years back, I shouted out Richmond on Twitter, and sure enough, they came around and beat Iowa in the first round. So every now and then we come up with a couple hits on that stuff.
Which we didn't get to today, but I'm sure talk like the A10 is awesome. You mentioned Richmond and Dayton are both really
great
good.
This year.
So
yeah, a lot of
check
fun.
that out. That conference out.
We'll obviously have much more on mid-major teams going forward. But now as of right now, I want your Final Four plus one. So basically, give me your four you think you're going to be in the Final Four this year, / however you want to see it, and give me a team that you're looking at right now to watch out for. Dusty, I'm starting with you.
My 4, and just to tailor this to me, unless something changes, my plus 1 is going to be an SEC team to look at.
I don't get plus ones at weddings because I'm single.
Exactly. Think of the 4 teams. Think of the plus 1 as a person you're bringing to at your wedding, but single Nick doesn't obviously
I've never
have
had a plus 1.
so you wouldn't know. But
wouldn't.
Dusty and I are aware.
So my 4 teams are, after this weekend, North Carolina. I think them and UConn at the moment are the 2 best teams in the country.
Uh-huh.
But I have North Carolina. I do have Purdue.
Woo!
And I'm going to dive into them later thanks to some fan questions.
Okay.
Houston, that defense, I think Saturday was...
it was an anomaly. Losing at Kansas, yeah.
And then, to me, we've talked about this conference, but there's always a team in the last really decade that makes a crazy run we're not expecting. So, for me right now...
I have a great stat on that.
So do I.
I'll mention here in a second.
Assuming that they break this conference's situation, and my only fear with them is they are so good at home, but I have as my other Final Four team right now, New Mexico.
Love the Lobos.
And then I have my best SEC team right now.
Your plus one.
And the reason they're plus 1, I don't necessarily think they're the best team in the SEC right now, but they have such good guard play. We all know guard wins in March. Guard play wins in March. I have Alabama right now, who since those 3 losses,
they beat the crap out of Mississippi State Saturday night.
And since those 3 losses, was that Atlantis or Maui?
When
they were not in Maui for sure.
No, they weren't in Maui.
But that's when we lost to Purdue, Creighton, Arizona. Where were you guys playing at? What tournament?
We played in Maui.
Those are different games. I don't think that was like a tournament setting.
Yeah, they played Creighton at Creighton.
Yeah.
So it was just 3 in a row, though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Since that game,
we played them in Toronto. Okay. That was that when if Charles Bediako was still going to be on Alabama and he's a Canadian, it was supposed to be the Bediako versus Edie Canada game.
Ignorance on my part.
You seen Toronto T. Matthews win the All-Star game, Robbie?
Continue on. We're not a hockey pod.
But since then, their only loss is at Tennessee. And I think that's not a bad.
That's an acceptable loss. I mean, it's not South Carolina. Speaking of which,
no, it is not.
That gives me a good segue to my Final Four.
And
because
they stomped South Carolina, so go ahead.
Shh, I don't care. My Final Four: UConn, Kentucky, North Carolina, and I'm actually got Florida Atlantic as my 4th team in the Final Four. And let me give you a little. I'm going to go with. Here's the best way to explain it. I'm going with the Butler theory here on Florida Atlantic, where you have a mid-major team that made the Final Four that everyone talked about. It was like, oh, this is great. And they bring back almost their entire team, and everyone's going to be like, oh, it's Florida Atlantic. We're going to get him this year. And like John L. Davis is a freaking baller.
From Indiana.
He is so good. They got a Weatherspoon on there. That's Quindari's little brother, Brandon, who's really, really good. They still get...
Golden down low.
Freaking Golden is still a monster in there.
Nick Boyd is the other good guard for them.
So, like, they've got really good guards, and when they want to defend, they will defend. Very similar to what Butler was going through when they went into a back-to-back Final Four. So, that's my Final Four Butler theory on FAU.
That's a great comparison,
Can you
Robbie.
make a Stevens to May coaching, young fiery coach
Both
as well?
from Indiana ties?
Indiana ties.
This is...
I'm talking myself into taking Florida Atlantic in the Final Four again. And then my plus 1, I love South Carolina. They defend their biskies off. And if Michi Johnson can find his shot, he's been so bad the last couple games for him. Ohio State transfer, really good guard. If they can figure it out, South Carolina is a team I do not want to see in March.
I want to shout out to Coach Lamont Paris because I made his argument to someone 2 years ago. I think of all the Power 6 jobs, I would argue South Carolina might be one of the hardest to win.
It's one of the toughest.
Like if you actually look at they have no success.
No, none. Like that's why when Frank Martin took that Sindarius Thornwell team to a Final Four, that made that crazy impressive too.
Dude,
yeah,
I think they have 7 tournament appearances since like 1970 or something. Like 7.
Crazy.
There's no history of success there. So shout Lamont Paris.
And how amazing is it that you think of South Carolina not being anything more than maybe a football school?
No, South Carolina is a baseball school. 100% a baseball school. Yes,
I was helping our viewers here. But their men's and women's basketball teams are combined 39-3 right now.
I guess
their women's team's going to win it all this year. I'm pretty convinced of that. Yeah, they're so good. Before we get to your Final Four,
what
okay?
What is this?
I want to get my stat out of here.
What is this?
Okay.
Oh, you.
A 5 seed or lower has been in the Final Four of every tournament in the last 10 years. A 5 seed or lower. And 12 of the last 13. Since the turn of the millennium, 15 of the 24 Final Fours have had a 5 seed or lower.
Robby, we damn near have the same stat.
Yep.
So since 2013, a 7 seed or higher has made the tournament every year except once. So 2019
has made the Final Four, you mean? Okay.
So the 5 seed was the highest, but every year.
So Florida Atlantic last year, North Carolina was an 8 seed, UCLA was the 11, Auburn was the 5, Loyola 11, South Carolina 7, Syracuse 10, Michigan State 7, Kentucky UConn 8 and 7, Wichita State 9. Crazy. So when we're gonna have a big bracket show once we get closer to it, but something to consider on your brackets is find a 5 seed or lower, see if you can see what kind of matchups it ends up being luck because Florida Atlantic would have lost to Purdue in the second round anyway last year.
I guess we'll never know, Robby.
We'll never know, will we? Because Purdue didn't make it there. I don't know how they didn't. But anyway, that's a really fun stat. So, Nick, give me your Final Four plus 1.
See, you put this on the rundown. This is always interesting. Like, what's the theory? Like, am I picking the 4 best teams?
How do you see it?
That's kind of also like, do you kind of think, or like, kind of thing, like, okay, do I pick a 1 seed and a 2 seed and 3 seed? Since it never works out that 4 1 seeds make it. So that's kind of how I went. I picked basically my favorite 1, 2, 3, and then 1 off the board.
Nick, we gave you the canvas. You just have to paint it.
And I'm a great painter.
I like the way to put that.
I'm a cut off my ear like Van Gogh. But before I do that,
it's like Wedding Crashers where Jeff. That was a painting, Jeff. I did this for you.
Easy A, Wedding Crashers.
Great references in the first show, man.
See, we know pop culture on the show.
We got some big pop culture references. Can only go down from here, but yes, give me your Final Four plus 1.
Dick Vitale. Okay, I had Houston. I love Houston.
You're
every
still
year.
On Houston?
Oh yeah,
okay.
I do this every year. Marquette's a team I still love every year.
Oh no!
Despite Shaka Smart's never made to the Sweet 16 other than that one run.
No.
I know, Eddie. I trust Tyler Kolek. Tyler Kolek will take us there.
They're going to get out rebounded by a team that bullies them. So continue on.
This is, to me, there's always one Final Four team I think I hate. Like, I don't know how they make, kind of like Miami last year. I don't know how, this is Illinois to me this year. And I know.
What?
I don't like it. It just
You've
feels
given me 3 teams that I think have no chance of making a Final Four.
We don't want to get into the, Terrence Shannon is playing basketball for Illinois. We don't have to get into the details. Just
we don't. No.
Just want to note that for people. He is playing for them.
He is playing, yes.
And then kind of the 7th seed I'm looking at, Colorado State, Isaiah Stevens.
The
Kimba, you need
my Rams.
You always need the one guy to take you, like the Kimba Walker everyone likes to point to. Isaiah Stevens or Marquise Noel last year's another good example of that.
Marquise Noel.
So that's my Colorado State, and my plus 1 all year is going to be FAU. Just because my plus 1, they're my love, they're my heart. So Owls are my plus 1. We'll see you in Phoenix.
All right, so your Final Four was the 3rd best. I would say Dusty's the 2nd best, and mine's first. Your Final Four was terrible. Like literally, Marquette. If they play against any team that can rebound, they're toast.
If I told you Miami Single State are making a Final Four last year, like that makes no sense.
No, it doesn't.
You need to be a little.
Yeah, but again, Shaka's teams ever since VCU, they are terrible in March.
It's a
last year was supposed to be the team, right? With Omax Prosper, and they got worked by Michigan State.
It's a Tower Kolek effect.
All right, right now, I'm going to call it with your prediction about rebounding of Marquette. Marquette, it will end up with a
3 seed?
No,
Matrix had at 2 today.
Okay.
I was going to say, I think they end up at least with a 3.
Okay, they're going to falter a little bit, get a 5 seed. They're going to play a team that went to their playing game as a 12 seed. They're going to lose to Florida in the first round, who is a very top 2 rebounding team.
That's a scary matchup for them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Florida over Marquette.
There was a segment that I teased, I think, when we were
talking
about
me.
Single Nick. There's a segment that I wanted to tease talking about teams you don't want to see in March. We're going to get to that eventually, but Florida's a team that I would want to stay away from in March. Jake is going to love this.
Cut that part.
We're going to cut this part out.
Cut that.
But yeah, that's a Florida team that they're starting to get some momentum really quick, and I think they could be a team to watch out for. All right, Final Four plus 1. All right, let's look ahead to the week ahead.
I thought I had the best Final Four.
I disagree. Your week ahead, what to watch for? I've got a couple games I'm looking out for. I always love when Kansas plays at Kansas State. That's a game coming up Monday night. Octagon of Doom games are always fun. Butler has been really good on the road lately for some crazy reason. They play at number 1 UConn on Tuesday night. if Butler can somehow figure it out, like Butler's a team that's starting to work their way into the tournament. That's a fun team.
They are fun to watch for the first time in 10 years.
Which that was their problem the past couple years. They were just awful to watch play basketball. They are so much better now.
I love Butler. I think they're a lot of fun. Wednesday's games, two really good ones. Alabama and Auburn's going to be fun. Iowa State at Texas. Iowa State just had a really tough loss last night to Baylor, I believe.
Yes.
So
hit a buzzer shot after the buzzer.
Yeah.
Every game in the Big 12 is just a battle.
Big 12 is a great conference.
Every
Obviously, Big 12's best conference. So I'm curious to see how the Cyclones will bounce back at Texas, a team that looked really good against TCU on Saturday. Thursday's game is FAU at UAB. Yeah. That's going to be a fun one.
That's my lock of the week we'll get to.
That's your lock of the week. Ooh, we're going to talk a little betting here momentarily. And then next Saturday's slate is not as good as this past Saturday's, but still pretty good. TCU, Iowa State, Georgia, Kentucky, Baylor's at Kansas, and obviously IU at Purdue.
And what a hard-working podcast. I'm actually there on assignment. I'll be there for Gonzaga and Kentucky. So
we are paying you a stipend to go to that game. So yes, just make sure fast food only. Okay,
that's all.
No steakhouse.
No promises.
Okay.
I'll be a nice lady. I'll take her out. We'll go to a nice steak. So, shout Tony's, by the way. Lexington.
Pretty good slate this week. Obviously, it hasn't been as good as this week, I think. But any other games that I'm missing from coming up this week? Then
they're just to UNC. I mentioned ACC is trying to get teams in a tournament, so there's two notable. It's like Clemson goes at UNC on Tuesday.
Clemson has to have that game.
And then another one, a team like this could define their season. UNC's at Miami next Saturday. So can Miami, if they can maybe get that, maybe they're alive. So I think those are two.
That
just
could
like,
be an interesting one.
Can the ACC try and get some more teams in? I know Clemson's in right now, but
so North Carolina on the road has been iffy. Their last two games almost lost to Florida State, probably should have, and then obviously lost at Georgia Tech. So if there's one you want to look at as potentially one you could parlay into something, that would be one. So Dusty, any games that we're looking ahead for this week?
Oh, one more: Arizona at Utah. Utah's a tournament team as well on Thursday.
Utah's a tough place to play, so yeah, that's a good one too.
So February is a ton of fun. I have a few notes just to get this week going. One, I mentioned small conferences as they're winding down. This is really where the thick of the bubble teams and the big conferences and the small conferences really start to sort themselves out. So just be looking for those. Iowa State, I mentioned two big games this week at Texas and TCU at home.
They probably need to win one of those.
They're going to figure out which direction they're going in. I think they can win both. They're good. Couple other notes. Nick's darling is Florida Atlantic for his life.
Hoot, hoot.
My darling this year is I love the San Francisco Dons.
Love the Dons, yes.
I've been watching their games at night. They are at Pepperdine and home against Santa Clara this week. Two wins. They are
got to be 2 wins.
Tied for second in the WCC, but they do not have the tiebreaker at the moment. Two other notes. One, Detroit Mercy, for those who don't know.
Oh my gosh.
A once proud program is 0-24, I believe. Just lost over the weekend.
I thought they were going to beat Robin Morris there for a little bit.
Detroit basketball this year. So they have 6 combined wins between the two teams.
So this week they are at Wright State and at Northern Kentucky. I'm going to assume that's two losses. So the game we're eyeing for them is on Valentine's Day. Nick can watch since he won't have the date. They play at home against IUPUI.
Oh, they're going to win that game. They're winning that game.
So next week, lock in Valentine's Day night wherever you're watching. Have them change the TVs to whatever network that's not going to be on. So
I'll be very busy Valentine's Day. If you know what I mean, Craig.
And the fun part.
Busy with what?
I can't say on this non-explicit pod.
Okay.
With Jack Goose Givens. And so, I lost my tone of thought.
Thinking about me on Valentine's Day. Got you.
The fun part about Detroit is two fun facts. First of all, the head coach at Detroit, for those who don't know, is Mike Davis, who we mentioned earlier.
Still crazy. I cannot believe he's there.
And his son, Mike Davis Jr., is a head assistant. If you read Mike Davis Jr.'s bio on the school website, says... It says something along the lines of, and someone who's very familiar with the head coach himself.
Wow.
They were so proud of themselves when they wrote that.
Played at Georgetown too, right? Didn't Mike Davis Jr. play at Georgetown?
He was at IU at one point, too.
I thought he transferred to Georgetown.
3 schools.
Okay.
And then my favorite player on this team, though, is Hakeem Olajuwon's son, Abdullah Olajuwon, which I believe is Hakeem's middle name.
Oh, cool.
Is on the team. He's a transfer from UMKC, averaged 25 points a game when he was in Houston High School. He's a sophomore.
How tall is he?
I think just below 7 foot.
Okay, so he's pretty tall.
He's not getting much clock, but just shout out to Elijah right now. I mean, first year really on the team. So, but yeah, Detroit Mercy. And then I do think we need to talk about Caitlin Clark really quick.
Oh, yeah. So
for
while we're
you can start her out and I'll give you the
yeah. Should mention. So even though we're obviously we love men's college basketball, we will definitely talk about the women's game absolutely. And for those who have not watched Caitlin Clark at Iowa, I think she is by far the most electric and most enjoyable player to watch in basketball right now.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And she's the future starting point guard for the Indiana Fever.
Yeah, she's
which I'm
Pacers.
excited for. Yes.
Yeah, for
or
people,
the Pacers.
For people who don't know, like she kind of plays like Jimmer Fredette or Trae Young, or kind of compare. But I think she's like a more efficient version.
She's incredible.
Of them.
So anyway, on Caitlin Clark.
So Caitlin Clark, for those who don't know, she is 66 points behind Kelsey Plum, right?
Kelsey Plum,
for the most points in women's college basketball history. So
okay, so she'll pass that in 2 games.
And
So
she's not even using the COVID year right now. She's like
correct.
So it's not like she's in her
It
fifth
is
year.
her
or anything.
4th year. She's 66 behind her. She averages 32 a game this year. So most likely,
Is she catching Maravich?
that's the next
Okay.
point. So if you go, so there's a chance she breaks it on Saturday the 11th. Sunday's the 11th, right?
Yes.
At Nebraska.
Okay.
If it's 3 games, they'll play at Michigan on the 15th.
Okay.
So there. She is only 205 points behind Pistol Pete Maravich. For those who don't know, this is crazy to think of because now I'm going to give a shout out to Pete Maravich. So, real quick, off Caitlin's stats, there's a chance she beats Pistol Pete on senior night against Ohio State if she stays at 32 a game.
That'll be great.
If not, she'll probably break in the Big Ten or NCAA tournament.
Right.
For those who don't know about Pete Maravich, he played back in the day before freshmen could play. So he did not play his freshman year. He's the all-time leading scorer at 3,667 points a game. He also did not have a three-point line. He averaged 44.2 points per game for his career. That will never be touched, ever.
No.
44 a game for 3 years. So there's a good chance he will not be the all-time scorer in men's and women's basketball. This 44 will never be touched. But congrats to Caitlin Clark for eventually
hitting that number.
barring something horrible happening injury-wise, right? We'll hit that number and be the highest scorer in the history of college basketball.
Yeah, the Ohio State student section tried taking her out a couple weeks ago. Did you guys see that?
Which would make it even more satisfying for her to.
Did you
if
see
she
that?
Broke,
I saw funny tweets like that's the best tackle anyone from Ohio State's made in 10 years.
Oh, that's brutal. That's really brutal. That's really funny, though. Yeah. So shout out Caitlin Clark. Did they win, by the way, over Maryland?
Don't
Did
they
win
win
that game?
overtime? I thought I
Went
saw.
to overtime? I have to look that up.
You think Iowa football fans are like, what is this? Points?
Point?
They don't understand what that is.
What is this?
Now, see, their men's team scores,
that's actually a great
but they're
point.
just like oh my gosh, we have a good mutual friend, Bailey, who is a big Iowa fan. Iowa did win that game 93-85. Caitlin Clark had 38 in that game, which, by the way, I mean, the fact that they're putting Iowa women's basketball games on Fox, the Fox
Correct.
channel for Saturday Night Hoops is freaking awesome. So, yeah, keep it up, Caitlin Clark. Definitely want to see Iowa make another run to a Final Four. That'd be really cool. That game against LSU that they had in the national championship last year was one of the best basketball games I've watched in some time. All right, so there's your look ahead.
Another game to watch is Pacers Rockets on Tuesday for people out there.
Yeah, we will be in attendance.
Dusty's a Rockets fan. I think you mentioned it already, but yeah, so a little pod battle on
Didn't know
Tuesday.
that. That's exciting. Okay,
We will
keep
be
it up
there
on
in
Tuesday.
person.
All right, so Pacers Rockets, a little NBA for you coming up on Tuesday night. So there's your look ahead. We have locks of the week, so we have talked a little betting. Now, we obviously want to preface this by saying please bet responsibly. Please make sure you're careful with your funds. We don't want to urge you or motivate you to bet, but hopefully we give you some insight as to maybe there's a team or there's
If you
a game.
do choose to bet.
If you happen to choose, maybe this would be a good opportunity to look into. I will start. We don't have the line for this game just yet, but I want to lock in Alabama-Auburn as my lock of the week because Auburn does not lose at home, and they blow teams out at home. They have won their 4 SEC games by an average of 15 points. Oof. And they lost at Alabama a couple weeks ago, so they're going to be mad. And Auburn's coming off a big win at Ole Miss where they were down double digits in the first half on Saturday and came back and won by 15. So whatever that line is for Auburn, I would say hit it and be confident in it. And whatever the over-under is, go way over because no one's playing defense on that game coming up on Wednesday.
And Auburn still doesn't have a quad 1 win yet, I believe. So I think they're going to be very motivated.
The Ole Miss game is a quad 1 win.
Yeah,
Ole Miss is in the top 75 of the net, but you were correct. Yes.
So last night was their first. Good call.
Yeah, so that's their first, which is crazy because they don't have a quad 1 win, but they are top 20, ranked in the top 20.
Right.
Which is nuts. So, yeah, Auburn played a really poor non-conference. They played Baylor at the Pentagon.
They went at Appalachian State.
And lost to App State, which App State's a team that could make the tournament this year as well. So, but yeah, I think Auburn should be feeling pretty good for that. Okay, Nick, lock of the week. What do we got?
Mine's nice and simple. There's no line either, but New Mexico plays UNLV at home next week. I'm sure the line's going to be massive. I don't care what the number is. Take it. New Mexico's not losing 2 in a row at home. They're going to have a full week to prepare. Just take them, whatever the point is.
I love that. Great pick. Dusty?
Mine is actually UAB at home against your Owls. They play on ESPN2 on Thursday. UAB is 10-2 in their last 12. They also have a win over Drake this year. They lost at Florida Atlantic already. They're going to be fired up, that crowd. They actually play SMU today, so we'll see how they do on ESPN2 then as well. But I have UAB at home against Florida Atlantic, money line.
That was the lamest thing I've ever heard.
By the way, I forgot to shout out
Rockets, and now that. It's going to be a contentious week.
I forgot to shout out during our mid-major segment, Indiana State has been so much fun to watch. And if you have not watched Josh Schertz's team, they just got a big win over Drake on Saturday. But they have a 6'11 dude by the name of Robby Avila, who is amazing.
He is like the college Jokic.
He is the Nikola Jokic of college basketball. He is awesome.
I saw they call him, his nickname is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
That's impressive. So anyway, I'm pulling hard for Indiana State to win the Valley. I don't even think they need to win the Valley to make the tournament, but it would be helpful. So pulling hard for Indiana State, the Sycamores. They got that big win over Drake on Saturday.
Yeah, Drake's like the second best team in the Valley. So.
Yeah. So that was a pretty solid win. So, all right. Getting towards the end of the show here. This is the part of the show where we want to bring you all in with us. We will have viewer questions at the end of the show. So it's your opportunity to send us your questions or comments. Please make sure you...
Or concerns.
You may have a concern. Mm-hmm. You can also leave us a review on Spotify and let us know how we're doing. But you can email the show, d1anddonepod@gmail.com. You can also tweet at us at d1anddonepod. But the best way to find us is probably going to be on Facebook. It is at d1anddonepod on Facebook. So we got a couple good questions here. I'm going to start with this first one here. We got this from two people who are going to be tuning in, Matt Johnson and Amanda Rock. Is it finally Purdue's year? How will Purdue not be a sob story this March? And as much as I want to answer this, I'm not going to, because I want to leave it to the unbiased fans in the room here. Is it finally Purdue's year?
Yes. They'll be the Final Four. I have no doubt about that. I have a quick list. I'll be quick about this one. First of all, ED doesn't come back without some type of motivational unfinished business. Mm-hmm. Matt Painter, I know, hasn't, quote, been there. They haven't been to a Final Four since 1980, I believe.
1980.
So I found 4 teams that have won a national title since 1995 that did not scratch the Final Four but won the national championship the year that one of their star players was a senior.
Wow.
That's 1995 UCLA, 2004 UConn, Okafor, you guys can think of him. That's who I was thinking of ED. 2005 North Carolina with Sean May and those guys.
Oh, yeah.
And 2010, that Duke team. All teams that faltered early with a lot of potential. Now, no offense, they didn't lose to 15, 16 seeds per se. But some
Who
people
does that?
Some people are going to say maybe they don't have it. They haven't been there in the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight. They don't know how to play. Well, I guess they lost to St. Peter's in the Sweet 16. You understand what I'm saying?
No, we didn't.
So I think there is something to the unfinished business aspect of it. They can't get away from just feeding Edie either. And I think sometimes
it didn't happen. I mean, I would say it didn't happen today. Their guards were the ones that won this game against Wisconsin.
And that was my fear of them last year. And they have
Lance Jones.
They have shut me up. And Lance Jones. Lance will make you dance. Give him the rock. Give me some ISO ball.
Love.
You know who
Stones.
else says that? Lance Jones. So give Lance the ball.
Future guest of the show.
Nick, is it Purdue's year? How does Purdue not a sob story in March? How does it happen?
I'm glad you've asked me this question. I'm glad we started this podcast because we're college basketball experts. That's why we ask these questions. We give you the answers, right, Robbie?
Right.
That being said, I have no idea. Purdue has broken my brain. This program, it's mind-boggling.
Makes no sense.
I don't know what to think anymore. Granted, last year I was skeptical of them getting freshman guards, probably overperformed. But still, the way they went out, this program has broken. They're one of the 2 best teams in the country again. It's sneaking people to talk about Painter and Purdue. Like, they've been like a top 5 to 10 team now. It feels like almost every year since 2018 now. Like, it's been a consistently really good program.
Yeah.
Yet, like,
we have one Elite Eight.
Yeah.
That's it.
And again, that's why you're not losing the 16 Sweet 16s, right? Like, you're losing to 13s, 15s, 16s. The good news is there'll be a 1 seed this year, so they won't have to play a 14 seed. So you don't have to get.
What if we see a 14 in the Elite Eight?
You can never.
So I want to. If somehow Purdue does lose to a 14 seed, I want to create the Infinity Gauntlet and put all the stones are like 11 VCU, 12 Little Rock. 13 North Texas, 15 St. Peter's, 16 FDU, and the 14 Kennesaw State.
You truly are just missing the 14.
We are. That's the only one we're missing.
Because we've talked about that in the past. That's for every seed, right? Or is it just the double-digit one?
It's the double. Yeah, pretty incredible. So over the last, so so we lost to VCU in 2011. So that's last 13 years. Yeah.
So the answer is they are one of the two best teams in the country once again. Yeah. That being said, I do not know anymore.
Nick is saying no. Just
I don't disagree. I mean,
I don't know.
I don't disagree with you. It's
like if you told me Purdue's cutting down the Nets in April, I'd be like, yes, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But if you told me, hey, 9-seeded, Boise State knocked them off, be like, yep, that checks out.
If you
too.
said Robby's not going to be on Sunday's podcast, then I'd understand too.
I remember last year when the tournament came out. So I was pretty confident we were going to be a 1 seed, and we were. And I was saying the entire time, God forbid, if I see Memphis on that 8-9 line, I'm going to be freaking out.
You did.
I said that. And sure enough, Memphis showed up, and we couldn't even get past the team that was on our line. And we weren't even going to see Memphis.
And also, more small conference chat, I actually watched Farley Dickinson about a week and a half ago. They are horrible this year.
Granted, their coach
Great,
did leave.
thanks.
I know.
I feel so much better now.
They are miserable.
So
Have
thank
you seen how bad Doug Yeater is? The St. Peter's white
He's at Bryant now, right?
He averages like 3 points a game.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
And getting like
He's not allowed
fights
on
in
the
the middle of
podcast.
games. And
He's not allowed.
Why not?
kick rocks.
If Doug Eder wants to come on the pod, you're not going to say no?
I would say no.
I'm not being here. You can do a 1v1.
Okay, well, if we're picking out people that can come on our podcast, Joe Krabenhoff can come on the podcast.
we each get one person.
Yeah, we get one person each. So Joe Krabenhoff for me. All right, so good talk there on Purdue. Again, who knows? They currently have the best odds to go to the Final Four and win the national championship across all betting platforms. So do with that what you like. I have no idea. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I do not know.
Can I tell one more
so.
quick story?
Sure.
I know this is a longer episode, but we wanted to introduce ourselves. One of my cooler Purdue basketball memories was walking in. I worked at the 2010 Final Four. I actually volunteered and worked at the slam dunk contest, 3-point contest with a company called Intersport. I got invited to one of their private parties. Walked into a bar in Indianapolis, and sitting at a round table were 8, I would say, pretty beautiful women. And
Shout out.
And the one man sitting there, was sitting there with looked like a bourbon or a scotch and smoking a cigar by himself with all these women. Gene Cady.
I love that.
I think I'm going to say Mike Woodson after a loss.
That also works too. All my Purdue friends, Gene is in his 80s now, and he has been looking a little rough lately. We keep saying we got to go to a Final Four while Gene's still with us. So I'm really hoping.
But Sister Jean has.
Why do you even say that? That's not nice. All right. Second and last question comes from my good pal Dylan. How do you think the new teams are doing in the Big 12? UCF has 2 upsets of ranked teams already. So as a fan of a non-Power 5 team, is this normal? Should I be more excited or less excited? Love the question, by the way.
It's interesting because when I first thought that, I thought when TCU made the jump, remember they were Mountain West, and they were known for a football school.
Yeah, they were not. They've never really been a great basketball school.
But yet, they were pretty good at basketball pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess maybe if you can just get into the conference, maybe you can just get.
I still look back at UCF, and they were the team that should have beaten Zion Williamson and Duke.
Yes.
Aubrey Dawkins had that tip in. I think it was Aubrey Dawkins had the putback, or maybe it was one of their
It was Aubrey Dawkins.
Was it? Okay. And he should have had the tip in at buzzer beater to beat
Aubrey
Duke.
wasn't great. He was magnificent.
Quiet. But so anyway, looking at those new teams in the Big 12, so obviously Houston, we knew they were going to be pretty good. Cincinnati had a great win last night at Texas Tech, and then obviously UCF and BYU. Those are 4 really good teams that they've added this year, and they all are really good, and they've been great in the Big 12. So I guess, is this normal? 1. And then Dylan also asked, should I be more excited or less excited? I would say more excited. I mean, the fact that UCF is beating teams in the Big 12, like Kansas, that's massive. No matter when you beat Kansas, that's huge. So I think you should definitely be more excited.
Absolutely.
Is this normal? I mean, with college basketball, it's kind of become the norm if you have that home game. But
it's interesting. Like Houston was well established beforehand. Cincinnati's had some good teams over the years.
They have, yeah.
Who's the 4th one? Who else joined?
BYU, yeah.
I mean, these are all kind of like
BYU.
established
Did you know
programs.
BYU never won the WCC?
I mean,
And it comes to the Big 12.
Is
and they're
either Gonzaga or St. Mary's
Zaga's
then?
just
Yeah.
wins
I'm
every
just
year.
saying, though, they left a very small conference. One that obviously one team that was prolific in it forever ran it, but they never won the WCC. But they come to the Big 12 and they're relevant. So I think that's promising.
I would say I guess the count like Butler I guess would be the one they struggled a lot when they first got to the Big East.
Yeah.
I had Butler at Belmont switching over right now. George Mason I think jumped too early. They've never really had a presence since their Final Four run. I even think VCU kind of jumped the gun too early. So it can be a hit or miss, but I think Central Florida has the resources. They're a big enough college as it is that you should be excited. I mean, the other thing that comes down to should you be excited or nervous, what kind of fan are you? Some people, I have friends that they watch the game. I hope I'm not calling you because I don't think you're like this, Robby. They watch the game just to watch it, but they're more focused on the interim between games. When I watch games, I'm just freaking pumped to watch my team, and I get excited for every moment. So are you nervous during games or excited? Because you should be excited because you have so many more matchups against great teams like a Kansas and like a Texas and all that. And then the conference tournaments, the pressure to win it isn't going to be on you, but you have so many more opportunities to be relevant, to have fun. You just have to accept that your team may lose 8 or 9 games every single year, and that's okay. So I think it's nothing but positive, and it's more money for the school. Let's be real.
Absolutely. But my favorite part about UCF, I have a former student who goes there now. In their student section, instead of like waving like balloons and stuff or something, they wave palm branches to try to distract the free throw shooters, which I think is great.
That's innovation right there.
I've been to UCF's campus. My good pal Tom, who Tom and Dylan know me well, and I'm good friends with them. Tom went to Orlando, went to UCF. Their campus is awesome. UCF is
they're one of the top 3 biggest student bases.
Yeah,
like
over 40,000 students now.
I thought it was bigger than that.
It might be bigger. It might be bigger than that. But yeah, UCF is definitely on the up and up. I think you should definitely be excited because the future is bright. I mean, you're in a conference, like you've found a way to get one of those big conferences, and you're beating some of the top tier teams.
And now you can't cry about being undefeated, not winning a national championship in football.
Okay, now he's definitely gonna turn off the podcast.
And you got Gus Malzahn, who Auburn should have never fired. So there you go.
I don't disagree. All right. Those are our 2 questions. Again, make sure you shoot those questions to us on Facebook, at our Twitter, Instagram, email us.
Or ladies, you can slide in my DMs.
Or ladies, find Nick Mills on Twitter.
Options galore.
There's so many opportunities and options. So let's put a bow on this show. It was our first episode. We appreciate all of you tuning in. We had a lot of fun doing this. We're going to have this up every Sunday. I'm really excited. Dusty, I know we're going to touch bases on a lot of questions and a lot of topics going forward for you. But we didn't scratch the surface on you. So you played at Kentucky and you also played at Ball State. Please tell us how on earth that you didn't ever play one game for the Ball State Cardinals, but still you were on the team.
So I transferred to Ball State, ended up going to the coach's office. I'll try to give the short version because there's a longer story. Told me I wanted to play basketball again. The coach, the assistant at the time, did not believe my story. He thought I was making up that I walked on at Kentucky.
You're a con man coming in there.
A couple weeks later, a local high school coach, Pete Smith, found out that I had transferred to Ball State, so he called Billy Taylor at Ball State, said there's a former Kentucky point guard on your campus. Apparently, I was told later, Billy Taylor walked into a coach's meeting, said, blah, blah, we need to find this Dusty Mills guy. And that,
by the way, he didn't say you were a walk-on at Kentucky.
He did not.
He just said Kentucky point guard.
Great sales point right there.
Okay, yes, very good.
And so this assistant stands up. He says, oh, my gosh, he was in my office last week. I thought he made up the story. So they called me. They had me go to an open.
That's awesome.
They did. They had me go to an open trial with kind of a wink, wink. You're going to be on the team. Added me to the roster. And then the annoying part was they told me I had a red shirt, which is BS. I did not. I stayed at Kentucky as a sophomore as a student before I left. Ball State compliance claimed I had a red shirt. I said, no, that's not true. I think we had a buddy at the NCAA headquarters, pretty high up, and I called him. I won't say his name. And he said, I'll send you an email that says you're allowed to play. Sends me the email. I block out all of his stuff, turn it into compliance. And it was almost like the same thing. They basically were like, well, we can accept this as verification. I said, that's fine. It's giving you a reason to call the NCAA. Like, I can get you in front of everyone. Whatever. I got my parents' blessing to just redshirt. So I redshirted that year. And then to start the next year, I was told all offseason I'd be the backup point guard behind Randy Davis, another great IU high school basketball name.
Randy Davis.
And then I walked on campus day one, and they cut me. And their reasoning was because they had brought in which made no sense because, again, I was a walk-on. And they said
they cut walk-ons?
Yeah, they said they needed roster space, so they brought in a guard from, what's the school up in Gary, the private school?
Is it 21st Century, Gary?
No. We all know I'm spacing already out. Sorry.
It's not La Lemire, right?
No,
think of that.
no.
Okay.
That's Laporte.
Yeah.
But this point guard comes in. He's academically ineligible the first semester. He transferred at semester, and then Ball State called me back to come back to the roster. I'm sure more for to raise the academic part, but I basically told them no. So,
wow.
And then I got into coaching. Coached at Anderson High School last year of the Wigwam that year.
Which that's a cool claim to fame if you know anything about Indiana.
We
High
went
School
3-19
basketball.
that year, but we won senior night at the Wigwam.
Last game.
So the last game with the Wigwam, you won. That's a big deal. That's awesome. Dusty, I feel like I've learned more about Dusty in the past 2 hours than I knew for the last 30 years that we've known each other. So, peeling back some layers here.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
you wanted to be a teacher. I did not know that.
Did not know that. So for those of you who don't know, I do teach. I won't tell you where I teach. You'll probably figure it out if you find me on social media, but we're going to try to keep our personal lives and our private
Unlike Ed Cooley.
corporate lives. Yes, try to keep that off of the pod.
My life is very public,
but,
so
we're going to definitely
nothing to hide.
dive into Nick's social life every single time.
I'm an
we're on the pod.
accountant, okay?
So, big game Sunday coming up next Sunday. We may mention, we'll probably talk about Chiefs 49ers a little bit, I imagine, even though we're a college hoops pod. So
Dog Smith Bowl.
we hope you've enjoyed the first episode of the D1 and Done pod. We are out every Sunday. Make sure you leave a like and follow us either on Facebook or Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, all the places to find us. Guys, any last thoughts? Any last news and note I'm missing?
Like you said, it's every Sunday. I know for a lot of you, football's ending. You don't know what to do with your Sundays. Come hang out with us for a couple hours. We'll make it worth your while.
Wow. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.
All right. We'll see you next time on the D1 and Done pod.